Hello?
Anime demigod.
Here?
This isn't my what if, it's a fanfic, so the link will be in the description. Anyways, we should get started. Drip. Drip. Drip, drip. Sheesh, I knew you couldn't save yourself, always weighing me down, team, Naruto rasped out. What? Sasuke stammered in surprise. His newly awakened Sharingan had seen what had happened, but his mind took a few seconds to catch up. Naruto, you. His expression turned to shock when he saw Naruto covered in senbon needles. Now get that lame expression off your stupid face. The Uzumaki managed weakly. Why? Sasuke asked, not knowing what else to say. I used to hate you, you know, Naruto said as he felt his strength leaving him. Then why did you should have minded your own business. Sasuke shouted at him. How should I know? My body just moved, on its own, Naruto gasped out before he fell back and Sasuke caught him. You're going to be fine, Naruto, just don't move, Sasuke said, trying to reassure them both. Naruto just scoffed with a wince. I swore I wouldn't die, until I became Hokage. I thought my oath would save me, but, don't you dare die here, Sasuke. No. Sasuke thought as tears cascaded down his face. In that moment, Uchiha Sasuke's eyes changed again. Without any sign of hesitation, he sacrificed himself to save you. He was a shinobi worthy of respect who, in order to protect someone he cared about, threw himself headlong into what he knew full well was certain death. Is this the first time you've seen a comrade die? Such as the way ninja exist, the masked nin a few feet away stated. Shut up, Sasuke's voice was low as the air around them suddenly became heavier. I won't forgive you, he said with shaking fists at his side. He turned suddenly with his Sharingan spinning and changing, the pupil shifting into a helix-like pattern. Amaterasu, he exclaimed in hatred as black flames exploded from his eyes, setting the ice dome ablaze with unquenchable fire. What? What is this? The masked nin asked in thought as she watched on. He stepped back slightly as the intense feeling of rage washed over her. Such foul and disgusting chakra, he's completely different from the boy I was fighting just a minute ago. What is he? She mused as she quickly escaped from his ice mirror and threw herself outside the dome before it was completely melted. I may not have liked the dobe when we first met, but he didn't deserve to die, Sasuke said as his fists shook in anger. I'll make you pay for this. Zabuza-sama. Yukihaku thought as Sasuke shot forward again, intent on finishing the job. I have failed you. A kunai was thrust into his chest and he was flung back over the bridge. And for the first time since the Uchiha massacre, Sasuke cried over the pain of his first and only true friend in this cursed world. The mist cleared to reveal everyone else on the bridge. Kakashi had his fist driven through Zabuza's chest and Sakura stood with the client at the very back of the bridge. Kakashi pulled his arm out and Zabuza's corpse fell to the ground. Not bad, Kakashi, it looks you win, Zabuza's gasped out before the last of his life drained from his eyes. Sasuke? Kakashi asked his student over his shoulder. I'll be fine, sensei, just give me some time, Sasuke said as he wiped the tears from his face. Sasuke-kun. Kakashi-sensei. You're both alive, they heard the shout from their pink-haired teammate. Sakura. Sasuke thought sadly. What about Naruto? Sasuke-kun, where's Naruto? Sakura asked him. Sasuke didn't reply. Sakura stopped herself from continuing when she saw Sasuke turn away from her. Naruto? No, she thought with wide and fearful eyes. She may not have liked the dobe of the team, but he couldn't be dead, he just couldn't. I'll stay with you so that you won't be disobeying your sensei's orders, Tajuna told her, and she nodded slightly before pulling towards where Naruto was supposed to be, only to find nothing. Where is he? Sakura asked as Tajuna turned away in guilt. I think he may have fell in the water, Tajuna answered as he cast a look at the nearby edge of the bridge. Don't hold back for my sake, there are times when it's right to give in and shed honest tears, Tajuna told her sadly. I always got perfect scores on all my tests in school, I memorized each and every one of the 100 rules conduct for a ninja. I used to write them out of pride. We had a test one week and the question was, what is the 25th rule of shinobi conduct? Just like always I wrote it down. No matter what happens, a true shinobi must never, ever, show their emotions. The mission is the only priority, carry that in your heart and never, ever shed any tears. By now she was openly crying. So this is what a shinobi is, it's unbearable, Tajuna thought as he closed his eyes. So Zabuza failed, huh? No matter, I wasn't really going to pay him anyway, a voice spoke from the end of the bridge. Ghetto? Tajuna asked in surprise as he saw the businessman and the large mercenary force he had at his side. Ninja are so expensive these days, that's why I always hire Nukanin, they're easier to dispose of after the job is done. Though I had hoped a few more of you would have died, can't be helped I suppose, Gato mused before pointing his walking stick towards them. Kakashi, Sasuke spoke up with a dark tremor in his voice and the mange Kyoshirinen spinning wildly in his eyes. Look after Sakura and Tajuna for me, he whispered before purple chakra exploded from his body and took the shape of a large spiritual warrior. Susanoo. Wait Sasuke. Kakashi called but he was too late as Sasuke materialized a bow and launched a large chakra arrow right at Gato. Was that the Sharingan? What happened? Gato barely registered the attack before the arrow tore through his rather large stomach, tearing in two. Run for your lives, one of the mercs shouted as they all scattered, trying to flee from the large ethereal warrior. Katon, Gukakyu no Jutsu. Sasuke exhaled a large red fireball down on the bridge, blanketing the area where the mercenaries were located. They all screamed as they were all burned alive but some were able to jump into the water below to stuff out the flames. Sasuke dropped to one knee as the chakra construct dissipated. What happened, Sasuke? Kakashi asked him upon seeing his eyes. Sasuke deactivated the Jujutsu a second later and took a deep breath, to awaken the mange Kyoshirinen, the next stage of my clan's Jujutsu, I had to kill my best friend. What happened? Kakashi questioned again. I couldn't save him, Sasuke trailed off not knowing what else to say. Damn it. Kakashi gritted out. I'm sorry sensei, it looks like I failed again. The two walked to where Sakura was still crying and they all took a moment of silence before the villagers arrived led by Inari. Kakashi took a look back at what was left of Gato's corpse and proceeded to seal Zabuza in a scroll. The Kopinin turned to his team and finally spoke. Let's get out of here. Land of Whirlpools, Underground Complex. Pain was the first thing he felt as he started to regain consciousness, though this time he didn't mind the pain. In fact he welcomed it, pain meant he was still alive and wouldn't be meeting the Shinigami just yet. The second was confusion as his eyes forced themselves open despite his fatigue and he groaned when he saw what looked like a white ceiling. Just great, he was in a hospital. Where am I? He stammered out as he pushed himself into a sitting position. I wouldn't try to move if I were you, a new and amused voice spoke from his right. He turned his head saw a rather old man, probably older than even the Sandaime Hokage standing at his bedside, leaning on a large scroll. Are you, a Shinigami? Naruto asked before pain flared through his body once more. No I'm not, the old man said with amusement. And you feel pain because you're still among the living, he suddenly turned serious. However, it's a miracle that you and that girl survived. Both of you should have been crushed by the rampaging whirlpool that sucked you in. The Fuinjutsu in place would only allow for someone of Senju or Uzumaki descent to survive the transition along with their companions. Uzumaki? My name is Uzumaki Naruto, the blonde introduced. Yes, I know, the old man nodded. The Kyuubi's third Jinhiriki and the son of the Yondaime Hokage. Son of what the hell are you talking about old man? Naruto stammered in response. It can wait until later, the old man waved off his words before placing his hand over the boy's stomach. I have healed most of the damage you sustained and a good night's sleep should do the rest, especially with the Kyuubi's regenerative abilities boosting your already impressive healing factor. What happened? Naruto asked as the old man turned away. Where am I? You are in an underground compound deep in the former land of Whirlpool, specifically below the ruins of Uzushiagaku no Sato, the former home of the Uzumaki clan, the old man replied before walking towards the door at the far end of the room. Now if you will excuse me I have another guest to take care of. Hey! Wait up old man! Naruto yelled as he threw away the covers and swung his legs over. You shouldn't try to move, the old man suggested over his shoulder. I can sleep when I'm dead, Naruto responded. You're just like Mito-chan, the old man chuckled before he walked out of the room with Naruto following close behind. What happened to Sasuke team, Sakura-chan, and Kakashi-sensei? Naruto asked. And what did you mean before about the Kyuubi and me being the Yondaime's son? All in good time, young Uzumaki, the old man responded as they approached a door. Here we are, he said as he opened the door. At least tell me who you are. Naruto asked. Old man, are you a Nukanin? I'm a ghost of the Senju, the old man answered as he turned to face the boy. Senju Hashirama, the former Shodei Hokage of Konoha. The Shodei Hokage? Naruto asked in disbelief. And no way. You should be dead. The Uzumaki clan were known for their long lives and vitality which they inherited when they broke away from the Senju clan 300 years ago. And I personally have always had a stronger life force than others of my clan, Hashirama reasoned. Last time I checked I was about 110 years old now. But how are you here? If you were still alive, why aren't you in Konoha? Naruto questioned further. Back before the first Great Shinobi War I took possession of the 9 Biju including the Kyuubi and handed them out the 5 Great Shinobi villages in order to establish some measure of balance. When the first war began I realized what a mistake it was, and in the end I nominated my brother Senju Tobirama as the Nidaime Hokage in the hopes that he would find some way to regain some semblance of control over this cursed world. I disappeared after that when my wife Uzumaki Mito offered to bring me to Uzushio, and I've remained here ever since, trying to come up with a way to bring true peace to this world, Hashirama explained. Peace? Naruto asked as the two entered the room. Haku? He asked when he took notice of the bed at the far end of the room. A single familiar figure lay down on it, though despite her earlier comments to him of the contrary, she was very much a girl. She's an interesting one, Hashirama commented. A member of the Yuki clan known for their Hayatan bloodline, and from what Mito-chan's seals have been telling me, one of the only survivors of the bloodline purge in Kirigakure no Sato. Bloodline purge? Naruto inquired, having never heard about it. What are you talking about? Hiruzen hasn't told you anything, has he? Hashirama mused in disappointment. The Yondaime Mizukage, the current Jinhiriki of the Sanbai no Kyodaime, ordered the extermination of everyone with the Kekii Genkai including the Yuki clan. When my father found out that my mother and I had a bloodline, he tried to kill us. He killed my mother and I killed him. After that Zabuza-sama found me and took me with him. I've served him ever since, Haku spoke up as his eyes opened. Where am I? You're in the ruins of Uzushiagakure no Sato, Hashirama answered. You're lucky to be alive. If the kid here hadn't fallen in the whirlpool with you, then you would most certainly be dead right now. Zabuza-sama, is he? Haku trailed off. He's dead, Hashirama told her. My wife placed monitoring seals all over the continent. One of them was in the land of waves watching your battle. Zabuza-san was cut down by the copycat. Then please kill me, Haku requested. I have no reason left to live. You were the hunter nin with Zabuza, and now because he's dead you want to die too? Why? Naruto demanded. Everyone needs something to live for, Hashirama reasoned. As for you, Yuki girl, you have a new master now. You? Haku asked, confused. No, not me, Hashirama shook his head in amusement. I mean the young Uzumaki here, he said as he gestured to the Kyuubi Jinhiriki. Me? Why me? Naruto asked, surprised. I don't want a servant. Well, you've got one now. Deal with it. Hashirama waved off his concerns as he pulled out a chair and sat down. It's the spoils of war, kid, get used to it. Sage knows that he did when he took control of the Biju after beating Madara at the Valley of the End. Naruto-kun. Haku trailed off. My new master. Now, I believe you had some questions for me. Hashirama inquired. I want to know what's going on, Naruto said clearly. Are you sure you wish to know? Hashirama asked. You may not like the answers. Yes, Naruto nodded. You said something about Jintoki or something. It's pronounced Jinhiriki, it's a word my wife invented and used to describe those with Biju sealed within them, Hashirama explained. 80 years ago, shortly after the clan wars ended and the shinobi villages were founded, my rival Uchiha Madara left Konoha and used his Sharingan to take control of the Kyuubi no Yoko. He and I fought what basically amounted to a death match at the place now known as the Valley of the End. After I defeated both Madara and the Kyuubi, my wife sealed the fox inside her own body to keep it from falling into the hands of the Uchiha clan. Why you defeated the Kyuubi and someone who was powerful enough to control it? The scale you're talking about is. Naruto trailed off. By the standards of today, what Madara, the Kyuubi, and I were capable of was almost inhuman. Even today a lot of people recognize that we were in a league of our own, Hashirama continued. In fact, most regard my strength as that of legend and myth, like the tales of the Rakuto Sennin, the founder of the shinobi world. You're Hashirama-sama? Haku questioned with widened eyes. The Shodei Hokage. If you require proof then. Hashirama said in amusement as a wooden pedestal rose from the ground at his side. Mokuton. Haku trailed off at the sight. When I infuse my Yatun chakra into my Mokuton jutsu I am able to suppress and control the Biju, Hashirama said with a smile. My wife kept the Kyuubi locked away and my power constantly suppressed its influence until we parted all those years ago. Can you help me control the Kyuubi? Naruto asked hopefully. Ever since he found out that he had the demon fox inside him, he'd been fearful that one day its power would overwhelm him and the demon would escape, especially considering its inhuman strength. I already have, Hashirama replied. You have the Mokuton bloodline just like me, however because of the Kyuubi's presence in your body, your bloodline hasn't awakened, so I used my power to restrain the fox's influence and forcefully unlock your bloodline. I have a bloodline? Naruto asked shocked. I am the only member of the Senju clan to have the Mokuton bloodline because my mother had a particularly strong chakra much like your own mother, Hashirama continued. My mother? Naruto inquired. At the end of her life, my wife selected a successor for Uzashio to contain the Kyuubi, Hashirama explained. The one she chose was a young Uzumaki girl with a powerful chakra that could restrain the Biju much like my own power. She was your mother, Uzumaki Kushina. Uzumaki Kushina. Naruto trailed off. She was brought to Konoha shortly before Iwa, Kumo, and Kiri launched a full-scale assault on Uzashio. Konoha and Uzashio were allies, but Konoha abandoned Uzashio and left them to die, especially now that they someone who could recreate the Uzumaki clan in Konoha, Hashirama finished bitterly. Hiruzungaki was the one who gave the order to leave Uzashio to fend for themselves, Mito, and I have never forgiven him since. I don't believe you. There's no way the old man would do something like that. Naruto shouted. Really? What if I told you he and the elders, my brother's former students, ordered the extermination of the Uchiha clan only a few years ago? Hashirama shot back. What? Naruto asked. The thing about the Senju, Uzumaki, and Uchiha clans is, we're all distantly related to each other. Since Konoha was founded, all three clans have been pushed to the brink of extinction, Hashirama replied. Because of the Kyuubi attack on Konoha 12 years ago, the Uchiha clan came under suspicion, and because of their unjust treatment they were planning a rebellion only to be betrayed by Uchiha Itachi, the heir of the Uchiha clan, and were systematically wiped out by order of the Konoha higher UPS. Why you've got to be kidding me, Naruto stammered out. Sasuke's clan were killed off by Konoha on the old man's orders? And my clan were left to die? Why? 12 years ago someone attacked your mother, murdered Hiruzungaki's wife, ripped the Kyuubi from your mother's seal and summoned it to attack Konoha. Your father then sealed the Kyuubi in you, Hashirama continued. My father. Naruto trailed off as his eyes widened. Your father was Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage, Hashirama said clearly. He was a master of Jakuken ninjutsu, surpassing even my brother in some areas, and his mastery of Fuinjutsu was equal to any Uzumaki. He was a true random genius if there ever was one. My father sealed the Kyuubi in me. Naruto clenched his fists at his side. I feel like hitting something. His fist struck the wall and suddenly planks of wood exploded across the room. Did I do that? It appears your affinity with Mokuton may be even greater than mine, Hashirama mused. Incredible, Haku commented. Indeed, Hashirama nodded. That's not all I have to tell you, young Uzumaki. Your sensei was your father's student and he didn't tell you anything. Your godfather, Jiraiya of the Sun, and one of Hiruzungaki's students and my granddaughter's former teammate abandoned you and even now is making large amounts of money writing porn books. Why are you telling me all of this? What's the point? Naruto asked angrily as tears streaked down his face. Is it to make me feel worthless? I still have friends that care about me and that's all that matters. Friends? I looked in on those friends of yours, Hashirama spoke in disgust. Harano Sakura, a fangirl who constantly hits and abuses you. Uchiha Sasuke, someone who just gained the Mangekyo Sharingan, which can only be awakened when you believe that you've killed your best friend, and Hatake Kakashi, the man who won't tell you anything and won't train you, leaving you the same weak fool. Stop! Naruto yelled as he dropped to his knees, tears flowing freely from his eyes. Enough! Haku shouted as she tried to get up out of the bed. I won't allow you to hurt Naruto-sama anymore. I'm just trying to make him understand his current situation. Hashirama waved off her words. When your parents died, at the very least you should have been given to my granddaughter Tsunade. Since my wife was an Uzumaki, then Tsunade would be classed as your next of kin. However, judging by the fact that you remained in Konoha all these years, it's likely that Hiruzungaki wanted you abused and forced into a life of servitude, believing him to be your savior and the only one you could turn to. Why? Why did it turn out like this? Naruto asked, begging to know the answer. Because this world is cursed, Hashirama replied honestly. Love turns to hatred, and that hatred turns to revenge and war, which creates more hatred. Power and greed have corrupted this world into what it is today, perhaps even worse than the clan wars. Naruto-sama. Haku trailed off as she saw her master pull himself together. What must I do? Naruto asked. I don't want anyone else to grow up like me. The only way to establish any kind of true peace would be to unite the shinobi world and then abolish the ninja system completely. With the entire world under a single banner, there would be no need for ninja anymore, Hashirama answered. What will you do? What can I do? If I return to Konoha now, I'll never be able to look at the old man in the same ever again, Naruto thought. What is a village? What is a clan? What are ninja? Konoha's crimes are disgusting, a perversion upon what the Shodai and Nidaime Hokages created. And my father, he was a hero that was willing to sacrifice his own family to save a village that spat on everything he stood for. Your answer? Hashirama inquired. Naruto started. I will stand with you. What do I need to do to bring peace to this cursed world? Land of Whirlpools, Underground Complex. 6 months had passed since Naruto and Haku had arrived in former homeland of the Uzumaki clan, and Hashirama had been teaching Naruto various jutsu, namely Mokuton, which he had mastered after extensive usage of the Dejukage Bunshin no Jutsu and his massive chakra reserves granted to him as a member of the Uzumaki clan and boosted by the Kyuubi sealed within him. Then there was that incident just after he'd arrived. Flashback begin. Naruto stood before a massive metal cage door with bars in a dark void beyond. 2 massive red eyes opened and glowed in the darkness as his vision grew clearer, allowing him to see the enormous demon fox for the first time. Senju Hashirama stood behind, having linked their minds together in a similar manner to what he had done with his late wife. So my jailer finally decides to grace me with his presence, spoke the Kyuubi no Yoko with a mocking tone. And you dare to bring that wrinkled-up old fool with you, he added upon seeing the elder Senju. You are still filled with so much hatred, Kyuubi, Hashirama said solemnly. I can respect your strength as one of his sons, mortal, the Kyuubi sneered at them. But do not think you can come here and speak to me with such a tone. This is a Shiki Fujin, correct? Hashirama asked finally. Yes, the Kyuubi growled. A kinjutsu of the Uzumaki clan that my previous host taught to the one who ended up sealing me here. I see, Hashirama nodded and placed his hand on the cage doors. What are you doing? The Kyuubi demanded. This, the elder Senju answered as he channeled some chakra and 2 figures appeared beside the seal. You, Yondaime Hokage, Kushina. The Kyuubi snarled out. What happened? Asked Uzumaki Kushina. Minato-kun. Kushina. Namikaze Minato blinked in surprise. Mom, Dad. Naruto spoke with wide eyes as the two turned to him. And Naruto? Son. Kushina asked almost in disbelief. How is this possible? We were only supposed to appear when either the seal collapses or when you were finally ready to gain control of the Kyuubi's power, Minato asked. That would be my fault, Hashirama spoke up. Shodai-sama? Minato asked in surprise. I will leave you to catch up with your son, Hashirama said as he turned away. He is strong and will gain control of the Kyuubi without you. Spend your last moments in this life with the son you never had the chance to know, he will handle the rest just like you believe he will. Thank you, Minato bowed in gratitude for getting the chance to get to know his son without worrying about the Kyuubi breaking free. Flashback end. After 6 months of almost non-stop training using the Dejukage Bunshin no Jutsu to create upwards of 2,000 shadow clones a day, he was able to master his father's Hiraishin no Jutsu and Raise-Non along with incorporating his wind affinity into the Raise-Non to make it even more powerful. That coupled with his Mokuton bloodline and massive chakra reserves would possibly make him one of the strongest shinobi alive. You wanted to talk to me? Naruto asked as Haku stood at his side. Yes, a bedridden Hashirama replied softly. I don't have much time left in this world and there is one last thing I must tell you before I pass on and meet Mito-chan again. What is it? Naruto asked sadly. When I chose Tobirama as the Nidaime Hokage and left Konoha, I found Madara's discarded Manga Kyoshari Non. I had them implanted and it evolved into an eternal Manga Kyoshari Non. In the beginning nothing happened besides the fact that I gained the Jujutsu's abilities, however 9 years ago the eyes evolved into the Rinnegan, Hashirama explained. Rinnegan? Naruto asked. It was the Jujutsu of the Rakudo Sennin, Hashirama continued. From what I understand of what happened, you can't awaken the Rinnegan without both the Senju and Uchiha's combined power. I've taught you my Mokuton Jutsu and with your other abilities I honestly believe you can save this cursed world. What happened to your eyes? Naruto inquired. I transplanted them on a young Uzumaki girl about a year older than you and implanted my original eyes back into me, Hashirama answered. Anoka, he spoke as a beautiful woman with long red hair and carrying 2 swords strapped to her back appeared at his bedside. Yes, Hashirama-sama, asked Uzumaki Anoka. I want you to guide and aid Naruto in his journey, Hashirama gave the order. It shall be done, Anoka bowed her head. She had been his loyal servant and confidant for years, keeping him sane after his wife passed away and he'd saved her when Uzushio was destroyed. With his death she would serve his successor, this young boy who had become the elder Senju's apprentice and was someone she could come to call family. Anoka knows where to find the Uzumaki girl, Hashirama said to his apprentice. Her name is Karen. If you are to succeed then you will need allies because there will be those who wish to stand against you if for no other reason than because you exist. In the end, war may be the only answer. If I'm going to fight a war then I'll need an army, Naruto mused. Or a really good team. From here on you may choose your own path, Hashirama smiled as his eyes closed. Land of whirlpools, ruins of Uzushio. A single shinobi and 2 kunoichi stood atop a broken building overlooking a forgotten battlefield as the sun started to rise on the horizon. Yuki Haku was decked out in her hunter-nin clothes and carried the massive Kubikari Basho strapped to her back. She'd secretly returned to the land of waves and took in from her former master's grave after finding out that the citizens of Wave had named their bridge after her new master, Naruto. The other kunoichi was the long-haired red-headed beauty dressed in a purple sleeveless kimono with yellow trimmings held close by a traditional obi with a long, streaming bow tied to it, mesh armor underneath it and a short white skirt. Strapped to her back were the Uzu no Tsurugi, the Uzumaki clan's prized sealing blade, and the Raijin no Ken, the sword crafted by the Nidaime Hokage. Finally, standing just in front of them was a man dressed in a black cloak with a yellow outline and a hood covering his head, though his blonde hair peeked out slightly from the front. The front of the cloak parted as he placed one foot on the stone step before him and turned to the others. Black and crimson armor could be seen through the small gap in his cloak and a white kitsune mask. From now on until I say otherwise, no one must know who I really am, Naruto spoke clearly. I need a name that I can use without giving anything away. How about Menma? Yes, that name will do just fine. Uzumaki Naruto had always been able to avoid the umbu of Konoha and many jonin and shinin even when he was still in the academy. He had single-handedly pranked the umbu headquarters and wasn't caught until after the deed was done. He'd even painted the Hokage monument, something visible to the entire village in broad daylight, and no one had noticed until he was putting on the finishing touches. It was no surprise that he'd been able to sneak himself and his 2 new teammates into the restricted training ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death. There she is, Anoka whispered as the 3 landed soundlessly on the branches of several large trees and peeked out from cover at the sight that greeted them. There were 3 figures just in front of them. 2 were scar-covered boys and the last was a girl roughly Naruto's age with familiar blood-red hair. Upon closer inspection it appeared she was wearing glasses, no doubt to cover her jujutsu from being seen. Is that Hashirama-sensei's Rinnegan? Naruto asked. Yes, Anoka confirmed. He transplanted them on her when she was still a girl after Suna Ninja raided her home village and killed her parents. As a member of the Uzumaki clan she also has a powerful chakra, though hers is able to heal others when they bite her, making her potential as a medic nin capable of rivaling both Hashirama-sama and Tsunade-sama. She also has the ability to sense the chakra of others from long range, making it very difficult to get the drop on her. She is no doubt already aware of our presence, however given the last mission that Hashirama-sama assigned her, it's no surprise that she hasn't called on us yet. Mission? Haku inquired. Hashirama-sama tasked her with infiltrating the village that Orochimaru of the Sun founded known as Otagaku or no Sato, Anoka explained. She was able to do so and was assigned to a genin team to infiltrate the Chunin exams disguised as Kusen Ninja. From what I understand, he is setting the stage for something that I hope she knows about. We've got company, Naruto spoke up. Something dark and foul is coming our way. It had taken some getting used to, his negative emotion sensing ability that he gained upon forcefully restraining the Kyuubi's influence allowed him to sense even the stealthiest of adversaries. It was clearly one of the Kyuubi's abilities, and it certainly explained why he gained his reputation as a force of nature that appeared whenever human malice and hatred converged before proceeding to wipe them from the face of the shinobi world. He was still working on controlling its effective range. Oh shit, Anoka cursed as three figures appeared in the clearing below and confronted the three disguised Otonin. What's wrong? Haku inquired. The one in the middle, Anoka reported. That's Suna's Jinhiraki, he's the youngest son of the current Kazekage and is completely batshit crazy. When I say crazy I mean off of the fucking charts, the guy kills to prove his existence, as he says. The Ichibai. Naruto trailed off before narrowing his eyes. Anoka, Haku, change of plans, prepare a containment seal and ready your sword, Anoka. Because not only are we recovering Karen-san but we're also taking the Ichibai while we're at it. Uchiha Sasuke was in a foul mood. It had been 6 months since the mission to the Land of Wave and the death of his best friend. These eyes he'd awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan was a curse as well as a blessing. It gave him the power to avenge his fallen comrade, however in doing so it also reduced his vision and would continue to do so the more he used that stage of his jujutsu until he would eventually go blind. According to the tablet in the Naka shrine he could acquire an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan by harvesting the Sharingan of another, but as far as he could tell, all of his clansmen had been burned to stop others from doing just that. Only Itaki remained and he too had the Mangekyo Sharingan, meaning he too was suffering from its effects and would require a replacement eventually. That explained why he'd been spared. Itaki had left him alive as a spare and told him to awaken the same eyes as him so when the time came he would attain an even greater power than the one he already possessed. According to the few journals he could find regarding the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, only one man in the entire history of the clan had awakened their Mangekyo Sharingan and harvested the Mangekyo Sharingan of another instead of the regular Sharingan. That man later became known as the strongest Uchiha who ever lived, rivaled only by the likes of Senju Hashirama, who was recognized as the strongest shinobi of his era. His name was Uchiha Madara. He could barely find anything on the man other than he was feared far and wide as one of the most dangerous shinobi who ever lived. His power was so great that he was able to control the Kyuubi no Yoko and summon it to fight for him with nothing more than a single look. Apparently he also defeated both Nidaime and Sandaime Tsuchikage by himself, which spoke volumes of his power. Sasuke had to shiver from the thought of what Itaka could do with that kind of power. Since the mission to the Land of Wave, a lot had happened. Naruto's name was carved into the memorial stone and he'd spent many a morning standing in front of it along with Kakashi, simply staring at the names of the departed. Kakashi had told him that his own teammate had sacrificed himself to save both him and his other teammate and died just after giving him his transplanted Sharingan. He was regarded as a hero and a black sheep. A boy named Sai was their replacement on the team and both he and Sakura had almost killed him on more than one occasion. While he was skilled in the ninja arts, he was by far the most annoying person he'd ever met. It was like he was the complete opposite of Naruto more than even Sasuke was, and that was saying something. Sakura had gone into a kind of depression and had now become obsessed with him even more. It appeared that Naruto had acted as a buffer to stop her from being consumed by her own inadequacy, and with him gone she had no one to cheer her up after each rejection. If she actually put some effort into becoming a strong kunoichi and actually grew a rack, then he might consider dating her. The only girl he'd even consider dating right now would be the Hyuga heiress, and not because of her wealth but because of her determination to become a strong kunoichi, and of course the ridiculously large chest she kept hidden at all times with that coat of hers was an added bonus. The reason he didn't was because she liked him instead, and even if the dope had never known about it, he wasn't going to make a move on a girl that had been in love with his best friend. That and the girl hated him. She blamed him for Naruto's death, and rightly so. If he had been just a bit faster, just a bit stronger, just a bit better, then Naruto may not have died. He'd stopped blaming himself for what happened because they both knew what they signed up for when they had decided to continue the mission after face the demon brothers, but the guilt was still there. Survivor's guilt, horrible thing. Kakashi had entered their names in the Chunin exams and they had passed the first task with ease after a small altercation with some Otonins and a fellow Konohanin, Yakushi Kabuto. The second task was practically a free-for-all war between the Genin teams in the off-limits training ground 44 named the Forest of Death, with the finishing line being the large tower in the center. Immediately upon entering the forest, a strong futon jutsu had blasted Sai away from them. A Kusanin had appeared in front of them. Kukyukyuku, the woman chuckled as she almost seemed to slither across the branch of a nearby tree. So you're Uchiha Sasuke-kun, let's see how you stack up against your brother. You know Itachi? Sasuke asked her as his Sharingan started to spin wildly. This girl, she's not normal, and her chakra is far too large to be that of a genin. Who is she? What is she after? Kukyukyuku, such beautiful eyes, the Kusanin smiled before disappearing in a burst of speed. She's fast, Sasuke thought as his Sharingan tracked her movements. I can't keep up, she reappeared in front of him and slammed her fist into his stomach, sending him hurling into a nearby tree and then crashing down to the forest floor below. Sasuke-kun! Sakura shouted in worry before a wave of killing intent washed over her, freezing her in place as the image of her own death flashed through her mind. Pitiful little girl, the woman spoke amused. A nobody like you has no place here, she said as she turned back to where Sasuke had fallen. She hits hard, Sasuke thought as he wiped away the blood dripping from his mouth. She's not a genin, not even a chunin, she's jonin level, easily. I may have to use the Mangekyo, he glared up at the Kusanin and asked. Who are you? You're not here for the exams, you're here for something else and I bet it's got something to do with me. Kukyukyuku, the woman chuckled. I'm here to offer you something that no one else can. Fighting for Konoha has made you weak and though you are skilled, you are still nowhere near Itachi's level at your age. What do you know about Itachi? Sasuke questioned with narrowed eyes. I know where he is and what he is after these days. I can give you the power to face him if you join me, the woman spoke with a wide smile. Join you? Never, Sasuke rejected immediately. Maybe I should give you a little taste of the power I can offer you, the Kusanin mused. As you are now you can't possibly defeat Itachi. Do not speak to me of Itachi, Sasuke glare intensified as his Sharingan started to spin and shift into its Mangekyo form. That's the woman thought in surprise. Tsukuyomi, Sasuke whispered as their eyes locked and the Kusanin froze. Sasuke quickly formed a set of hand seals and then expelled a huge fireball up at woman. Katon, Gukakyu no Jutsu. Damn, the woman cursed as the flames engulfed her. It exploded in a torrent of fire as she threw herself backwards out of the inferno, her clothes burnt and her skin of her face peeling revealing another, male face underneath. He has the Mangekyo Sharingan, just like Itachi. You're. Sakura thought in surprise upon seeing the woman-man's true face. Orochimaru of the Sunin, she asked in shock, remember the photos of Konoha's legendary traitor. Orochimaru. Sasuke mused as he landed beside his teammate. What's an S-rank criminal of Konoha want with me? I underestimated you, Orochimaru sneered at them. You're just like Itachi, you even have the same eyes as he does. I am nothing like Itachi, Sasuke snarled as black flames exploded from his eyes. Amaterasu. That's too much. Orochimaru thought as the black flames covered him. His mouth opened wide and another Orochimaru climbed out before quickly dashing away as the remains of the first one were incinerated. If I use my full power here then no doubt Sarutobi-sensei will take notice and come here personally to stop me. Curse these Uchiha. Forcing me to flee not once but twice. You're fast, Sasuke commented. But you can't escape my eyes. I won't forget this, Orochimaru promised as he seemed to sink into the bark of the tree he stood on. Mark my words, Sasuke-kun. Your body will be mine, he was gone a moment later. My body. Sasuke trailed off as his eyes returned to normal and his vision suddenly blurred. Damn, he cursed as he steadied himself. Sasuke-kun. Sakura asked worried. I'm fine, Sakura, Sasuke waved off her concern as his vision returned. Let's find Sai and find a scroll we can use to finish the task. Uzumaki Karen had always been special. When she was young her home village was attacked and destroyed by Suna resulting in the death of her family. She'd always been able to sense the chakra of others and so was able to warn her parents of the approaching Suna forces but even with prior warning the village was still wiped out forcing her to flee. The Sunanins pursued her and it was when they cornered her that her life had changed forever. Senju Hashirama had bestowed the Rinnegan upon her, giving her the power to defend herself and avenge her parents' deaths. She'd slaughtered the Sunanins and after burying her parents, a distant cousin of hers called Uzumaki Anoka arrived under orders from Hashirama-sama to bring her to him in order for him to train her to use the gift he'd given her. With nowhere else to go she accepted the offer. After 3 years of training she was tasked with infiltrating Oto and a year later she now stood here, in the Forest of Death taking part in the Chunin exams. Her two teammates were fools with delusions of grandeur that she would gladly kill when given the chance, and judging by the sight of the three Sunanins that had dropped down in front of them, she was about to get her chance. She could sense the other three watching on not too far away, one of which she was able to identify as her clansman, Anoka. However, the other two felt strange. The chakra of one of them felt cold as ice but with a spring feel, while the other was a shining light with a huge and chaotic chakra beneath the surface like a raging storm. Interesting. Back to the matter at hand, the three Sunanins in front of her felt strange, and not in a good way either. The most noticeable was the boy in the center, who arguably had an enormous chakra for his age rivaling that of Anoka-nichan's, while the other two appeared afraid of their comrade. Like the one with Anoka, this boy also had a second chakra that was bumbling just below the surface. The killing intent he was leaking was also a giveaway of his intentions. "Give us your scroll, sand trash," spoke one of her stupid teammates. "Gaara." The blonde Suna Kunoichi trailed off as she stared worriedly at her brother. "Temari," the other Suna shinobi whispered to her. "Don't," he warned. "But Kankuro dash," Temari said back. "You know we can't stop him," Kankuro muttered sadly. "Sabaku Q," Gaara spoke calmly as sand exploded from the ground and grabbed hold of the one who demanded something of him. What the hell?" the Otonin shouted in shock and fear as the sand encased him. "Sabaku so-so," a look of glee appeared on Gaara's face as he raised his hand and clenched it into a fist. The sand imploded, crushing the captured Otonin and splattering blood all over the ground. "And no way." The other Otonin stammered in fear as he fell backwards onto his rear and tried to push himself away. "Impressive," Karen commented as she appeared behind her last teammate. "Well, since you just killed one of my teammates, I can no longer pass this task, so I think I'll stop playing around." What? Karen, her former teammate, asked as she grabbed his head and pulled. "Ningendo," Karen whispered as she ripped out the Otonin's soul and threw it away without a care, to the surprise of the three Sunanins. "What the hell was that?" Kankuro asked. "He was your own teammate and you just killed him." "Why?" Temari questioned. "Oh please," Karen rolled her eyes in disgust. "My allegiance lies elsewhere." She then took off her glasses, revealing her grey rippled eyes. "Now to deal with you three. You will prove my existence," Gaara spoke clearly as sand spiraled around the Uzumaki Kunoichi. "Sabaku Q. This trick again, huh?" Karen mused as her eyes glowed. "Sabaku so dash," Gaara started. "Tendo, Shinra Tensei," Karen spoke calmly as the sand shifted and was repelled away from her to everyone's surprise. "So weak," she commented as she raised her Tendo, Banshotenin. The moment her words left her lips, Gaara was pulled towards her. "Gaara!" Temari shouted in worry as she swung her large metal fan. "Futon, Kama Itaki no Jutsu," she bellowed as a gust of wind shot at Karen. "Gakido, Fujitsukyuin," Karen whispered as she brought her other hand up and seemed to absorb the wind blast. "How did she dash?" Temari asked in surprise at seeing her jutsu be rendered useless. Faster than they could see, Karen's fist shot out as Gaara was pulled towards her and struck him across the jaw, shattering his sand defenses and sending him rolling across the ground. Quickly getting over his shock at seeing his untouchable brother being beaten like one wooden insect, Kankuro quickly sent Karasu to attack the Uzumaki Kunoichi. "Shurado," Karen spoke as her arm seemed to detach, revealing a long tube-like machine where blood and organic tissue were supposed to be. The inside of the tube glowed green before a blast of chakra exploded from the barrel, tearing Karasu in two and scattering its remains around her. "What the hell is she?" Kankuro asked in surprise. "Is she some kind of human puppet? My jutsu are useless against her." Kankuro just lost Karasu and Gaara was just hit for the first time ever. At this rate Gaara may actually release that creature, Temari thought with mounting fear as a wave of killing intent and utter insanity washed over the area. "That chakra." Karen trailed off before narrowing her eyes. "Gadot, Shakura Kuzeri," she called out as multiple chains of chakra exploded from her back and dug into the ground behind her. They exploded upwards around Gaara, who was encased in sand that had taken the shape of a monstrous human-sized raccoon before wrapping around him and pulled him down to the ground. The demonic chakra drained away and the sand fell lifeless, revealing Gaara's unconscious form. "And no way!" Temari stammered in surprise. Suddenly two senbon struck her in the neck and she fell lifeless to the ground. "Temari!" Kankuro shouted in worry before he was struck on the back of the neck and fell limp. "So that's the power of the Rinnegan," Naruto commented as he dropped down with Haku and Anoka. "I was wondering when you'd make your appearance," Karen responded. We should leave before someone decides to investigate the demonic chakra this guy released. She nodded towards the motionless Ichibai Jinhiriki. Not yet, Naruto countered. Anoka. Fun, Kai. Anoka exclaimed as she released the seal containing the Ichibai. Here we go, Anoka whispered as she unsheathed the Uzu no Tsurugi and impaled Gaara through the back before quickly pulling the blade out and quickly placing sword in the nearby kettle she'd unsealed. The demonic spirit was ripped from Gaara's body and was soon pulled into the kettle, imprisoning it within. Fuinjutsu, Arashi Fun, she whispered as the Ichibai was sealed. It's done, she declared. A Jinhirakiha? Naruto asked as he gazed down at the now deceased Sabaku no Gaara. He doesn't deserve to die like this. You mourn the enemy? Karin asked confused. I'm a Jinhiriki too, Naruto responded. I know how it feels like to be hated and despised because of what I am. I wouldn't wish our fate on anyone no matter who they are even if it isn't so bad anymore. Very well, Karin nodded in satisfaction. Gado, Rini Tensei no Jutsu, she formed a hand seal and Gaara's body suddenly glowed green as the life suddenly returned to his body. That jutsu is always exhausting, she commented suddenly out of breath. A resurrection technique. Naruto mused. We should get out of here, Haku spoke up. Agreed, Naruto nodded and held out his arms. Everyone, grab on, he told them and they quickly grabbed hold of his arms. Hiraishin no Jutsu, they were gone a moment later. The Yondaime Kazekage was a very angry man when the Jonin assigned to train his 3 children reported what had happened to him. At first he didn't believe what he'd been told, but that disbelief soon changed to anger when he realized that not only did he lose the Ichibai but also that it was now in the hands of an unknown. Are you telling me that not only was Gaara defeated but Shikaka was taken by some genin child from some backwater village? The Kazekage shouted in outrage. Yes sir, Baki confirmed. Gaara is alive though no one is sure how that is possible, least of all Chobasama. The Ichibai's previous Jinhiriki both died when Shikaka was removed from their bodies, the Kazekage said through gritted teeth and leaned back in his chair. So where do we stand? Gaara still has control over sand and his automatic defenses seem to be intact despite no longer containing the Ichibai. However, without Shikaka he will not be able to release it during the Chunin exam finals in 1 month, Baki reported. This is a disaster, the Kazekage gritted out. Without a Biju we cannot hope to attack Konoha with any hope of victory. With all due respect, Kazekage-sama, Baki bowed his head. From what Yakushi Kabuto has told us, Konoha has recently lost their Jinhiriki, leaving them weakened. Even without the Ichibai, Gaara is still a formidable opponent and can easily kill anyone that challenges him. Do not underestimate Konoha, the Kazekage told him. They have stood as the strongest shinobi village ever since the founding of the 5 great nations. And yet they've grown weaker since the death of their Yondaime Hokage, spoke Cho from the doorway. Sarutobi Hiruzen may be strong but he is far past his prime. Of his students only Jiraiya remains loyal to him, and other than that there are no other S-rank shinobi in their ranks. If there was ever a time to put an end to Konoha it would be now, declared her younger brother Ebizo. Chobasama, Ebizoji-sama, the Kazekage bowed his head in respect for the 2 village elders. Welcome. What will you do, Yondaime Kazekage-sama? Cho asked. We'll destroy Konoha. Land of Fire, Konoha/Hokage Monument. Uzumaki Naruto atop the head of the Yondaime Hokage's face carved into the mountain overlooking the village below with a look of indifference. This village was cursed. Ever since it was founded the Senju, Uzumaki, and Uchiha clans had been pushed to the brink of extinction while everyone else prospered, living lives of comfort and luxury on the pain and suffering of him and those like him. Not anymore. It's time to begin, he said before he jumped and disappeared in a yellow flash. Across the village, the Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, was putting on his armor knowing that his wayward student Orochimaru would make his move today. Whatever was going to happen, he needed to be prepared, especially considering he didn't plan on letting his student escape again. He already had a lot of regrets. Orochimaru, Tsunade, Minato, Kushina, Naruto, Biwako, he wished that he could have done something for them. Suddenly an oppressive feeling washed over him, like a lingering wrongness was in the air, much like what he had felt 13 years ago. It couldn't be. He thought before quickly putting on his remaining armor and running out of the door. Kuki-yos no Jutsu, Naruto whispered as he slammed his hand down on the roof of a building. An explosion of smoke caught the attention of everyone around before a loud roar echoed across the village, freezing the thousands that inhabited Konohagakure no Sato in shock and fear. Do it, Shukaku, the blonde ordered as he retracted several vines from the Ichibi's back and jumped, disappearing in a yellow flash. This is... Hiruzen thought upon seeing the massive sand tanuki. Hokage-sama. It's the Ichibi. The Ichibi just appeared out of nowhere, shouted an Umbu that appeared at his side. I know. I'll hold it back, evacuate and protect the civilians. Hiruzen ordered. And bring my grandson to me, he added to his eternal shame. I'm sorry Kano Amaru-kun, but as Hokage I must seal the Ichibi away and you are the only candidate I have. Yes sir, the Umbu bowed before disappearing in a burst of speed. The Ichibi roared again, leveling buildings and unleashing a wave of sand through the village, crushing all that it touched before turning its attention to the Sandaime Hokage. So you've noticed me already. Hiruzen muttered as it roared again. Futon, Ronkyuden. Shukaku bellowed as several massive blasts of wind exploded from its mouth and exploded, destroying dozens of buildings where they struck. This can't go on, Hiruzen spoke as he quickly formed a set of hand seals. Kuki Yos no Jutsu, he exclaimed and slammed his hand on the ground. Seals spread out and a moment later the Monkey King, Menma, appeared in a burst of smoke. Hiruzen? What the hell happened here? Menma asked in surprise upon seeing the Biju tearing the village apart. It appeared out of nowhere, Hiruzen replied. I need your help, old friend. You have it, Menma agreed. Just then Shukaku roared again and started gathering red and blue chakra spheres into a large black ball at its mouth. No, Hiruzen said as his heart sank seeing the Ichibi ready that particular jutsu. Menma, he shouted. Kongo Rahaki. Menma called out as dozens of clones formed around him and transformed into staffs. They stacked themselves in front of the pair as the two took cover and a thunderous sound filled the air. Biju Dama. Shukaku bellowed as the sphere in its mouth exploded forwards in a beam of dark yellow light, tearing the earth apart leaving a large gash through the center of Konoha all the way to the village walls. Damn, Hiruzen cursed as the blast died down. Hiruzen, are you alright? Menma asked as his clones dispelled. I'm getting too old for this shit, Hiruzen grumbled as a flicker of movement appeared behind him. What? He thought as someone grabbed his shoulder. Hiruzen. Menma shouted as he lunged forward, just narrowly grabbed hold of Hiruzen's arm before the three vanished in a yellow flashed. Land of Fire, Namikaze Residence. Hiraishin no Jutsu, the words echoed Hiruzen and Menma crashed to the ground, rolling on the grass before painfully pushing themselves to their feet. That was... Hiruzen trailed off in shock and took notice of where he was. They were in front of Minato and Kushina's old house, now destroyed from the inside and left like that ever since as a monument in a grave. You will face me, Sandaime Hokage, spoke a deep voice drawing their attention. Naruto stood straight as his cloak waved in the wind and his mask shined with morning light. Who are you? Hiruzen questioned. How do you know the Hiraishin no Jutsu? A name is meaningless to you, Naruto said calmly. Call me Menma, I am the savior of this world. Savior? Hiruzen trailed off confused. Don't take me for a fool, you can control the Ichibi, you set it loose on Konoha and know how to perform the Yondaime Hokage's signature Jakuken ninjutsu with enough skill to get the drop on me. You aren't any ordinary shinobi though judging by your height I would say that you are still a child, he commented. Though he may just be short like Onaki. I am the one who will bring about peace to this cursed world, Naruto declared. Hiruzen, Menma spoke as he made a hand seal. Talking won't do anything here, he transformed into a staff a second later. Henge, Kongonyoe, his summoner grabbed hold of the staff and twirled it round before settling into his Bajutsu stance. It doesn't matter who you are, Hiruzen declared. As an enemy of Konoha you will be stopped here before you can do any more damage. We'll see about that, Naruto said before throwing a familiar three-pronged kunao at him. Hiraishin no Jutsu, he reappeared beside Hiruzen and drove a blue chakra ball into his stomach. Raise non. Hiruzen's body suddenly blew apart into a splatter of mud. He's fast for an old man, I didn't even see him switch with the mud clone. Doton, Doryu Taiga, Hiruzen spoke from behind him as the mud at his feet shifted and dragged him towards the wall surrounding the former Yondaime's residence. Doton, Doryu Udan, a dragon head appeared and spat out mud at the masked blonde. Katon, Kari Udan, he exclaimed as he spewed a stream of fire into the blasts of mud, setting them ablaze. Not bad for an old man, Naruto thought as he quickly formed a set off-hand seals. Mokyuton, Mokyujoki, wood shot up from the ground and locked into place, creating half a dome in front of masked blonde. That's... Hiruzen thought in surprise. He has the Mokuton bloodline just like the Shodei Hokage. He narrowed his eyes. Are you a Senju? I am the inheritor of the will of fire, Naruto replied simply. Konoha betrayed everything that the Senju stood for and will vanish from this world for their crimes. This one is dangerous, Hiruzen mused. No wonder he was able to control the Ichibai, he has the Mokuton bloodline just like Hashirama-sama. Mokuton, Daijurin no Jutsu, Naruto said as he thrust his right arm out. It quickly changed into a large wooden tree which shot right at Hiruzen, swatting the flames away as it sprouted branches that quickly descended upon the old Sarutobi. Though he lacks Hashirama's raw power much like Tenzo, Hiruzen deduced as he narrowly evaded the assault and quickly jumped away. Someone who knows Hashirama's and Minato's jutsu is too dangerous to let live. If I don't stop him here he will no doubt destroy Konoha and possibly the rest of the world too. Mokuton, Mokuzatsu Shibari no Jutsu. Naruto exclaimed as large wooden columns rose from the ground and interlocked around him, prevent his escape. Katon, Karyuin Dan. Hiruzen called out as he exhaled a large blast of flames from his mouth that quickly incinerated the wooden bindings. He jumped back and landed on the outer wall of the destroyed house. This is about my limit, Naruto thought as his eyes narrowed behind his mask. I still need to master the level 2 Hiraishin no Jutsu before I can reach Dad's level and my chakra control isn't good enough to start throwing around Hashirama-sama's more powerful jutsu. If I use the Kyuubi he'll know who I am and that's something I don't want getting out. Everyone thinks I'm dead so no one is looking for me but if I want to keep the fact that I'm alive a secret I mustn't use the Kyuubi's power. I won't let you do as you please anymore, Hiruzen declared as he readied his staff. No, that's enough, Naruto said as he took a step back. I'm done here. What do you mean? Hiruzen questioned. I wanted to test myself against the god of shinobi, that is supposed to be the strongest shinobi alive, Naruto replied. From what I've seen you're long past your prime so I no longer have an interest in the situation. I will not let you just leave, declared the Sandaime Hokage. Try and stop me, Naruto challenged before disappearing in a yellow flash. Hiraishin no Jutsu. He said his name was Menma, Hiruzen thought. If he is still a child that means he still hasn't realized his full potential yet, it's only a matter of time before he surpasses me completely and I may not be here to face him next time, despite his strength even he could not fight the passage of time. No, there is always a way, I just pray you can forgive me Kano Amaru-kun, he turned and jumped into the trees, heading towards Konoha. Land of Fire, Konoha/Hokage Tower. Uzumaki Onoka and Yuki Haku had infiltrated the Hokage Tower and quickly made their way through the hallways towards the Hokage's office. When Naruto had summoned the Ichibai in the center of Konoha, all of the shinobi in the tower had immediately gone out to either fight the attacking Biju or evacuate the civilians from the battlefield leaving the tower deserted. Here it is, Onoka said as they opened a wall safe to the side of the office. I can't believe the Hokage kept it here even after Naruto-sama stole it the first time, Haku commented as the Uzumaki Kunoichi lifted out a large scroll from the safe. Only 3 people knew it was here, Onoka reasoned. The Hokage, Naruto-kun, and Orochimaru. And Naruto-kun, a voice asked in surprise and hope. Who's there? Onoka demanded as they turned swiftly. Why you said Naruto-kun, spoke a girl with lavender hair and white eyes. Did you mean Uzumaki Naruto? It's times like these that I wish Karindano would scout out the area, Onoka muttered as Haku disappeared in a blur and reappeared behind the newcomer. Who are you? She questioned. Tell us now before we kill you. I am Hyuga Hinata, the girl introduced as Haku held a senbon to her neck. Please. If Naruto-kun is really still alive then I have to see him again. What are you to him? Onoka asked curiously. Hinata said as she started to tear up. I love him. I couldn't tell him before but if he really is still alive then I need to tell him how much he means to me. You love him? Onoka inquired almost amused. I wonder where you were when this village ignored and betrayed him. The Hyuga heiress was openly crying now. Change of plans, Onoka spoke to her teammate. We're taking her with us. Haku nodded and punctured her neck, placing her in a death-like state. Naruto-sama may not like this, the Yuki Kunoichi said as she picked the Hyuga girl up. He will be the one that decides what to do with her, Onoka reasoned as she took out a small black rod-like object. We've accomplished what we came here for, she said as she squeezed the chakra rod in her hand and disappeared in a poof of smoke. Haku followed soon after, clenching another chakra rod in her own hand, leaving the Hokage tower completely empty. Outside of the village, Uzumaki Karen watched as the Ichibai rampaged through the destroyed village, crushing everything and everyone in its way. Konohanins were launching their futile attacks on the massive sand monster, but they could barely slow it down. She could sense the 4 largest chakra signatures in the village closing in on the creature, namely those of the shinobi listed as Sarutobi Hiruzen, Jiraiya, Heitake Kakashi, and Meito Gai. Hiruzen appeared to be outside of the village walls and rapidly making his way back towards the Biju. No doubt her benefactor, Uzumaki Naruto, had already confronted the aging Hokage and teleported them both away from the battlefield to have a bit of privacy. She admitted to feeling a little jealous when she'd heard that her now deceased master had taken another student, another member of the Uzumaki clan at that, who apparently had her master's Mokuton bloodline. She'd come to accept that her master had plans in motion even after his death, and both she and Naruto would be at the center of it. And it wasn't like she hated the blonde boy, in fact he seemed to grow on you and make it impossible not to like him. But there was just something about him that wasn't normal even by Uzumaki standards, and she wasn't talking about the Kyuubi sealed with him. He was something else, something more that she just couldn't figure out. Only time would tell. Her eyes narrowed as she felt Jiraiya appear at the edge of the village walls and charging up a considerable amount of chakra. No doubt he was about to summon something that could directly challenge the rampaging Biju. The others, Kakashi and Gai, were dashing towards Shikaka with a much smaller chakra signature that she didn't know following close behind. Could it be? Are they really planning to? Karen thought, only to stop as she felt a now familiar tug from the 2 chakra rods she'd created and given to Anoka and Haku. Chikushodo, Kukiyos no Jutsu, she whispered as she formed a hand seal, and 2 seal matrices formed at her sides, followed by a pair of explosions of smoke. The smoke cleared, revealing not 2 kunoichi like she had been expecting, but a third as well, though the unexpected guest seemed to be unconscious. I thought you were getting Hashirama-sama's forbidden scroll of sealing, not some Hyuga girl. We retrieved the scroll, Anoka informed. As for the girl, she was a target of opportunity that Menma-kun will decide what to do with. Whatever, Karen spoke dismissively. A yellow flash caught their attention as Naruto appeared in their midst, his cloak waving in the wind as he landed beside them. I trust you had fun, she asked in a neutral tone. Despite his age, the old man shouldn't be underestimated, Naruto replied. Though, he is far past his prime if I am able to hold my own against at my current level. Indeed, Karen mused. Naruto-sama, Haku spoke up. We have an extra, she reported with Hinata slung over her shoulder. Hinata. Naruto trailed off. Why is she here? Apparently she loves you, Anoka answered. I thought you might like to deal with her yourself. We're leaving, Naruto said clearly. There is nothing for us here now. The others nodded and grabbed hold of his arms before they all disappeared in a yellow flash. Land of Fire, Konoha/Battlefield. Kukiyos no Jutsu, called out Jiraiya of the Sun, and has landed in front of the massive sand demon rampaging through his home village. The mighty Gamabunta appeared in an explosion of smoke with Jiraiya riding on his head. Jiraiya! What the hell is going on? Gamabunta yelled at the sight that greeted him. The Ichibai is attacking Konoha, Jiraiya answered. It came out of nowhere just like the Kyuubi did 13 years ago. Damn, not again. Gamabunta shouted as he lunged forward with his sword drawn and slashed as he rushed past the Ichibai. Gamadosuzan, the toad boss, exclaimed as his sword tore through the sand demon's right arm, ripping it off before he was forced to jump away. Shukaku's physical strength is top-notch. You'll pay for that. Shukaku snarled before belching out several large wind spheres. Futon, Ronkyuden. Suton, Tepidama. Gamabunta countered as he unleashed several water bullets of his own. The 2 attacks struck each other and exploded in a blast of air and water, blowing both of them back. Got any ideas? Bunta. Give me some oil. Jiraiya yelled as he formed a hand seal. Katon, Gameuindan, both Gamabunta and Jiraiya exclaimed as one. A stream of oil exploded from the toad boss' mouth and was quickly directed at Shukaku, only for the oil to suddenly ignite and turn into an inferno when Jiraiya breathed fire into the stream. The flames engulfed Shukaku's form, turning a large amount of it into glass, though it quickly became clear that it wouldn't hold the insane Biju for long. Red chakra was leaking out from the demon and the glass was starting to crack, signifying its return. It's just going to keep reforming at this rate, Gamabunta said as he watched the glass start to break apart. This ends now, a familiar voice shouted as a large staff, many times large and longer than normal, struck down on the glass-covered Ichibai, shattering it into scattering shards. "Sensei!" Jiraiya yelled in surprise as Hiruzen dropped down in front of both him and Gamabunta. "What happened? Where were you?" he asked, wondering where the village's Hokage was during this crisis. "I was confronting the one behind this attack on our village," Hiruzen replied. "Someone orchestrated this?" Jiraiya asked in surprise. He'd had a theory that the Kyuubi's attack might have been engineered by someone, namely that man, but now it seemed like his theory had been confirmed. "Uchiha Madara," he muttered knowingly. "Jiraiya?" Hiruzen inquired. "I always thought that the Kyuubi attack 13 years ago was strange," Jiraiya reasoned. "I believe someone was behind that attack as well. If it is the same man I faced then." Hiruzen trailed off as Kakashi, Guy, and his grandson, Kano Amaru, landed beside him. "We've brought him, Hokage-sama," Kakashi spoke in a neutral tone. "I don't agree with this," Guy added. "This is most unyouthful. It has to be done for the good of the village," Hiruzen told them before turning to his obviously frightened grandson. "Kano Amaru, I'm sorry I have do this, as the duty of a Hokage is to protect the village. You will be a hero from this day forth, and I wish you a happy life." "Gee, Grandpa?" Kano Amaru asked in worry. "Shiki Fujin!" Hiruzen exclaimed as he formed a hand seal and the spectral form of the death god appeared behind him. "Do it," he gave the order, and the Shinigami's hand tore through his back and shot out through his stomach. It quickly latched onto Shikaku's reforming body and started pulling it in. "Fun!" His called out as his hand slammed into Kano Amaru's gut, and the sand demon was quickly pulled inside the boy's rapidly forming Haka no Funshiki engraved on his stomach, knocking him unconscious. "Sensei!" Jiraiya thought sadly. "I leave the rest to you." Hiruzen's eyes closed as the last of the Ichibi's chakra was sucked into its new Jinhira. "Damn it," Jiraiya cursed as he laid his now late sensei down on the ground. "First my student and now my sensei." Outside the village, Orochimaru of the Sunin, the self-proclaimed Otokage of Otagaku no Sato, watched on with a neutral expression. "Are you certain?" he questioned. "Yes, Orochimaru-sama," confirmed Yakushi Kabuto. "Both of the sacrifices for the Edo Tensei have been sabotaged." "I see." Orochimaru trailed off. "At least I killed that fool of a Kaze Kage. However, Suna has already withdrawn when they saw the Ichibai on a rampage. There seems to be a new player in this little game of ours, Madara. No matter, even though Konoha still stands, Sensei is dead and Konoha is in ruins. A new Hokage will have to be selected, and with the Ichibai now in Konoha's possession, the Akatsuki will take interest in the situation." "Your orders, Orochimaru-sama?" Kabuto inquired. "We'll leave," Orochimaru replied. "Spread the word to withdraw." Uchiha Itachi was a patient man by nature. The fact that he was willing to wait for his younger brother to grow strong enough to challenge him and finally end his pain could attest to that. 5 years ago he had slaughtered his entire clan in a single night, leaving only his brother alive to prevent the beginning of a fourth great shinobi war. The Uchiha clan had been planning a coup and he had been tasked to stop them, permanently. Secretly he still loved Konoha and his younger brother, however his current position as a member of the Akatsuki and Uchiha Madara's apprentice had placed him at the center of what could possibly be the beginning of a revolution akin to the formation of the shinobi villages. When Zetsu had informed them that the Ichibai had been removed from its still-living Jinhira and had attacked Konoha, the entirety of the Akatsuki organization had been surprised and in Madara's case a little confused. After all, it was him that had been responsible for the Kyuubi attack 13 years ago, and now it seemed that history had repeated itself. "They've escaped complete annihilation, but it appears they've sustained heavy losses," commented his partner, Hoshigaki Kisame. The man was a predator in every sense of the word, especially with the giggling demonic sword on his back. "For such a prosperous village, it's pathetic," Itachi commented as gazed upon the ruined village. "That's unlike you," Kisame chuckled amused. "So you still have lingering affections towards your home village? Even you have nostalgia, huh?" "No," Itachi replied as his Sharingan activated. "None at all." The Hokage Tower had surprisingly come through the recent Ichibai attack unscathed, though that couldn't be said for about 3/4 of the village. Unlike the Kyuubi attack 13 years ago, there was no Sandaime Hokage actively leading the shinobi into battle with the Ichibai until the very end. Without someone of S rank to hold the rampaging Biju off, it all but annihilated the entirety of Konoha before it was stopped by Sarutobi Hiruzen. "The demon must be killed immediately. We cannot let Sandaime-sama's sacrifice be in vain," screeched Harano Mabuki to the assembled councils. We were lucky that the Kyuubi was ridden from the world last year, and we can't possibly let another one of those things in the village. I won't let it hurt my daughter, the civilian council agreed loudly with her words. Enough, shouted Jiraiya as he entered the room, effectively silencing the room. Jiraiya-sama, Narashikaku greeted with a nod from his place amongst the shinobi council. Judging by the fact that you are here, I assume that you have agreed to become the Godame Hokage. Yes, Jiraiya nodded as he stepped up to the Hokage seat and sat down. As much as I'd like to continue my research, I can't let things stay the way they are without trying to do something about it. And what about the demon child? Asked Mabuki. He can't be allowed to live. Not after what he's done. That demon child, as you so eloquently put it, is the grandson of the Sandaime Hokage and my nephew, Sarutobi Asuma spoke up with a glare. That thing killed the honorable grandson and took his form. What if it possesses someone else? Mabuki countered as murmurs arose amongst the civilians. A Jinhuriki can be a powerful weapon for any shinobi village, Shimura Danzo said from his place amongst the three elders. Konoha is weakened right now with the Ichibai attack and the death of Sarutobi along with half of the village's shinobi. Having a Jinhuriki in the village will give the other nations pause, buying us time to properly train him to combat the enemies of Konoha. Enough, Jiraiya gritted out, knowing what the old warhawk was implying. I agree, the boy needs to be trained up, and I have someone in mind to do just that. As of now I am making an S-rank law that should anyone want to kill the demon, they will be immediately executed. Do I make myself clear? Be but Hokage-sama. Mabuki shrieked in outrage. Do I make myself clear? Jiraiya asked again, this time much colder. Why yes, Mabuki nodded, suddenly afraid. It's only a matter of time before that organization realizes Konoha has a new Biju in our possession, Jiraiya thought knowingly. The sooner the boy is fully trained, the greater chance that he'll have to survive in this world. Land of Fire, Forest of Death. Sarutobi Kano Amaru had until yesterday lived a life where the most stressing thing he could imagine was stepping out of his grandfather's shadow. As the grandson of the Sandaime Hokage, he was known as the Honorable Grandson and was never addressed by his real name. That had all changed yesterday when his own grandfather had sealed the demon that was attacking the village inside of him. Now they all saw him as the Ichibai he had sealed within him. Is this what Naruto Nissen felt like? Kano Amaru asked with no small amount of fear as he brought his hand to his stomach where the new seal was located. I still can't believe that Nissen had one of these things in him too. He'd awoken earlier that morning, and after a brief explanation of what had happened to him from the Umbu that had been assigned to guard him, he'd been brought here into the deep and forbidden forest Konoha used to conduct the second stage of its Chunin exams. He wasn't stupid despite his age. As a member of the Sarutobi clan his intellect was surpassed only by the likes of the Nara clan, and despite his age he understood just why he'd been brought to such an isolated location. There were only two answers to that. He was brought here so he wouldn't do any more damage to the village should the Ichibai try to take control of him and go on another rampage. The second was because emotions were running high right now, and there was always a possibility of someone either in the village or from other nations attempting to assassinate him for one reason or another. As the grandson of the Sandaime Hokage, he'd had assassination attempts on him before, but they were always minor things. Now that he was Konoha's new Jinhuriki, the other villages would make killing him one of their top priorities in order to weaken the village. Jinhuriki. He hated the word already. The Umbu that had been assigned to him had called himself Tenzo, and when asked why he was alone he would answer that unlike others he had a certain ability to actively suppress the chakra of a Biju. Considering the kind of damage that the Ichibai had caused, Kano Amaru couldn't help but wonder what could possibly suppress something like that even if it was sealed away in a host. And from what he was told, the Ichibai was considered the weakest of the 9 Biju. Who's there? Tenzo questioned, suddenly making him jump in surprise. It's just me, Kakashi spoke as he landed in the clearing with Sasuke following close behind. Senpai, Tenzo nodded in greeting. Identification. A leaf in the wind, Kakashi replied. It's good to see you, senpai, Tenzo sighed in relief. You can't be too careful these days. Agreed, Kakashi nodded as he and Sasuke approached. What's the kid doing here? Tenzo inquired. I thought a Mangekyo Sharinon may be useful should the seal fail, Kakashi reasoned before turning to the young Sarutobi. Jiraiya-sama would like to take a look at the seal to see if everything is intact, though if it's anything like Naruto's it will only allow chakra to leak into his chakra reserves. I still can't believe the dobe had one of things sealed in him, Sasuke spoke up. Even when he was alive, he was a sacrifice, and when he died he was one too. The Sharingan has always had the ability to control the Biju, Kakashi explained. That was one of the main reasons he was assigned to my team along with you, Sasuke. Speaking of teams, Sasuke said curiously. What's happening to Team 7 now that Sai has left the team? Kano Amaru-kun here will be taking his place, Kakashi answered. From the reports given to us by Jiraiya-sama's spy network, the former Ichibai Jinhiriki who somehow survived having the Biju removed has always been able to manipulate sand, Tenzo spoke up. But from what I've seen, Kano Amaru-kun doesn't have that ability. Do not forget that Sandaime-sama used the Shiki Fujin, Kakashi countered. It is the most powerful Fuinjutsu that we know of, requiring a contract with the Shinigami itself in order to use. The fact that it was able to allow Minato-sensei to defeat even the Kyuubi, something only ever accomplished by Shodei-sama, should be proof of that. Suten, Sukodan no Jutsu, a voice called out, surprising them as a large shark-shaped bullet of water descended upon them. That's... Kakashi thought as he quickly made a series of hand seals. Suten, Suiari Udan no Jutsu, he exclaimed as the water of the nearby pond shot up and took the shape of a dragon before swerving and intercepting the attacking water shark. Don't overdo Kisame, a new voice spoke clearly. We need him alive. That voice. Sasuke thought as his eyes widened. It can't be. Uchiha Itachi, the man who wiped out the Uchiha clan, Kakashi spoke upon seeing the two Nukenin as he lifted his Hitaiate to reveal his Sharingan. And Hoshigaki Kisame, a member of Kiri's 7 shinobi swordsmen. A Sharingan. Kisame mused at the sight. No wonder you stopped my jutsu, you must be Kopinen Kakashi. I heard you sparred with Zabuza a while back, heh, I'll cut you to ribbons. Easy Sasuke, Kakashi said as he saw the youngest Uchiha take a step forward. Hey, that kid looks a lot like you, Itachi. Do you know him? Kisame asked curiously. He's my little brother, Itachi replied. You're no brother of mine. Sasuke shouted in anger and hate as his Mangekyo Sharingan formed in his eyes. Not after what you've done. The Mangekyo. Itachi trailed off. So you finally have it. I know now why you left me alive, Sasuke spoke clearly. It was because you needed a spare to counter the blindness caused by the Mangekyo Sharingan and awaken an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. So you know, Itachi mused. I thought you wiped out your whole clan. Kisame inquired. I needed a spare pair of eyes for what is to come, Itachi replied. But he's still not ready, his eyes haven't matured enough for what I need. Heh, interesting, Kisame chuckled. You will be at a disadvantage if his Mangekyo Sharingan is anywhere near what mine was in the beginning, Itachi told him. I will deal with him personally, you can deal with the others. And our target? Kisame asked. Do whatever you like as long you don't kill him, Itachi answered unconcerned. I'll cut his legs off, Kisame grinned like a shark as he hefted Same Hata. Let's begin, Sasuke, Itachi spoke as his Mangekyo Sharingan activated, creating a black pinwheel over a red background. Tsukuyomi, Sasuke locked eyes and the two suddenly froze. A second later both Sasuke and Itachi dropped to their knees, panting hard. He was able to fracture and break the Tsukuyomi, though doing so drained both of us. What is this target that you're after? We are after the legacy of the Sandaime Hokage, Itachi answered. Kano Amaru, huh? Kakashi mused. You two aren't the only ones, are you? I know all about you, you call yourselves the Akatsuki. The Akatsuki. Tenzo trailed off as a now frightened Kano Amaru stood behind him. Kisame, change of plans. We're taking Kakashi with us, Itachi spoke up. Make the other one disappear. That's far enough, a new voice declared as red muscle-like walls appeared around them. Kukiyos, Gamaguchi Shibari, said Jiraiya from behind the two Akatsuki members. Jiraiya of the Sunin, Itachi mused. The Godame Hokage. I won't let you escape, Jiraiya told him. Now I know how Kakashi knew about us, Itachi commented. You were the source of his information. You're after the Ichibai, Jiraiya spoke clearly. That's why you've come after Kano Amaru. To take Kano Amaru with us, Itachi declared. That is the supreme order given to us by the leader of the Akatsuki. Who the hell could be so powerful that he's managed to get someone like you two to work for him? Jiraiya asked with narrowed eyes. He is someone beyond mortal understanding, Itachi replied simply. Not that it matters, we will capture the Ichibai another time when there is less interference. Kisame, we're leaving. You sure? Kisame asked his partner. A confrontation with the Hokage would at best result in our mutual destruction, Itaki reasoned. We will acquire the Ichibai another time. Right, Kisame nodded. Sasuke, Itaki spoke as he turned to his younger brother. You've grown stronger, but it's not enough, you still lack hatred. When we meet again it will be for the last time. A second later both Akatsuki members quickly started running down the organic corridor and turned a corner as the walls closed in behind them. Don't look now, but there's a wall of flesh coming after us, Kisame commented as they ran. It's fine, Itaki reassured as his eye started to bleed. Amaterasu, black flames shot out at the end of the far wall and melted the organic wall within seconds before the two jumped out, clearing the organic mass and fleeing into the trees. Jiraiya quickly arrived at the destroyed wall and looked down at the black flames. This is... He trailed off as he quickly unrolled a scroll. Fukahoin, he said as the flames were sucked into the seal on the scroll. They're really going to be coming after me, aren't they? Kano Amaru asked as he tried to calm himself. Yeah, Jiraiya nodded. My brother, his jutsu, I'm the only one who can fight him, Sasuke rasped out. As you are now, he'll kill you if he fought seriously, Jiraiya countered. Then what am I supposed to do? Sasuke questioned. Kakashi, change of plans, Jiraiya spoke with a hint of authority. As of right now I want you to take Sasuke on as your apprentice, teach everything you know and have him ready when the time comes. I will assign that little pink-haired kunoichi of yours to teammate. From what I understand they're down a member after the Hyuga girl was killed during the Ichibai's attack. Yes, Hokage-sama, Kakashi nodded in understanding. Tenzo, I want you to do the same, Kano Amaru, Jiraiya said as he turned to the Umbu. With your Mokuton abilities you should be able to aid in his training with the Ichibai's chakra. It shall be done, Hokage-sama, Tenzo bowed his head at the order. When she was younger the actress Fujikaze Yuki aka the heir to the Land of Snow's throne Kazuhana Koyuki was always thought as a sweet and innocent little girl. When her uncle murdered her father and took over the country, she was forced to flee with the help of a teenage red-haired girl. With the help of Uzumaki Anoka and her unnamed benefactor, she was able to escape and make a new identity for herself. She was told that the time would come to return to the Land of Snow and rid the country of her uncle Doto and his hired ninja once and for all. For now though Yukagaku no Sato, the nation's shinobi village was under the control of Doto and a Jonin-level ninja named Raga Nadare, so support from the village's shinobi forces was out of the question until those two were disposed of. Out of all the shinobi villages Yuki was perhaps the most isolated, though unlike Aim where the village was in lockdown, the entirety of the Land of Snow was so far away from the mainland that it would take a week by ship just to get there, so other nations left them alone. Koyuki-hime, Sandayu spoke from the doorway. Anoka-sama is here to see you, he informed. Send her in, Koyuki nodded and he quickly left as a familiar red-haired woman entered. So I take it everything went well? Better than we'd hoped, Anoka confirmed. Menma-sama's plan worked like a charm. We retrieved the forbidden scroll of sealing, captured an unmarked Hyuga, and now Sarutobi Hiruzen is dead. Konoha captured the Ichibai just like we predicted, so the Akatsuki will have to redirect their efforts back to Konoha in order to gain control of it. Ah, the mysterious Menmadano, Koyuki mused. I've heard a great many things about Karen-chan's benefactor, including the fact that he can control the Biju like she can. He's powerful, Anoka nodded. You should meet him sometime. Where is he now? Koyuki asked. He's in the hospital tent waiting for the Hyuga girl to wake up, Anoka answered. I can speak to him later, Koyuki waved it off. As for more important matters, Sandayu has suggested to the director that we should shoot the next Princess Gale movie in the Land of Snow, more specifically at Rainbow Glacier. You think it is the right time? Anoka asked. My father loved this country and Doto murdered him in order to seize control. I won't forgive him, Koyuki shot back. I've waited 10 years for this, I won't wait a moment longer. I will inform the others, Anoka nodded. Land of Snow, rebel base / hospital tent. Hyuga Hinata was always a shy girl by nature, known to faint almost at the mere sight of childhood crush. However, after she'd heard that Naruto had died on a mission and that Sasuke had been responsible if what she'd been told about the Mangekyo Sharingan was true, she'd quickly transformed into a cold and angry person. She'd progressed with an almost frightening pace, effortlessly beating anyone who challenged her whenever she sparred. When her team was entered into the Chunin exams, she had fought against her cousin Niji, who was hailed as the prodigy of the Hyuga clan during the preliminary rounds. Having created her own unique style to take advantage of her flexibility, she had almost casually defeated her fate-obsessed cousin, leading many of the clan elders to believe she was too dangerous and threatening their way of life with her new better style of jukin. Her father had been both proud and worried for her after she defeated her younger sister without a care. Adding on to that was the fact that she absolutely hated Uchiha Sasuke for what he'd done to her Naruto and had wanted to face him in the Chunin exam finals only for the Ichibai to attack before the finals could start. While the rest of the village shinobi either confronted the demon or evacuated civilians, she had noticed a pair of strange individuals infiltrating the Hokage Tower with her Byakugan and followed them. From what she'd heard, they knew Naruto, which was impossible because he was supposed to be dead. Her heart had jumped at the possibility that he could be alive, and now here she was, hoping to see her crush again. "Nar, are you, too, kun?" Hinata trailed off as his eyes slowly opened. "Not quite," the blonde's familiar voice spoke up in surprise from the nearby seat. "Naruto-kun?" Hinata asked as her vision cleared and she was able to make out the sight of the blonde boy to the side of her. "Is that you?" she asked further as she looked up at him, seeing him wearing a white kitsune mask. "Is that you?" "My name is Menma," Naruto introduced. "I still can't believe that Anoka and Haku were calling me by my real name while in Konoha of all places." "You're really him," Hinata smiled tearfully. "You have the same presence that he has, so you must be him." "Presence?" Naruto mused. "Anyone who paid attention to you would know this feeling," Hinata said as she wiped her tears. "Damn it, Hinata," Naruto gritted out before slowly removing his mask, revealing his face. "Why did you have to get involved?" "I want to join you," Hinata answered. "I want to be with you, I love you. I didn't tell you before and you suddenly disappeared. I didn't know what to do, and then I heard about how Sasuke's eyes evolved when you died." "I see." Naruto trailed off. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "I was afraid," Hinata answered honestly. "I was afraid that you wouldn't like me." "Hinata," Naruto said as he shook his head. "Back then I would have given anything to hear those words from anyone, especially those that meant them." "And now?" Hinata asked nervously. "I refuse, you had your chance and didn't tell me." "Now I simply don't care anymore," Naruto replied, causing her face to fall and tears to start flowing. "I am the one who summoned the Ichibai to attack Konoha, I'm a Nukenin now and I finally have people who care about me." "I don't care about any of that," Hinata told him. "I've known about the Kyuubi for years and I've never cared about it." "You knew?" Naruto asked, surprised. "I was told by one of my clansmen," Hinata answered. "I want to be with you." "All right," Naruto nodded. "But if you betray me then I will kill you. If you think about running or speaking about any of secrets to anyone then the seal I've placed on you will activate and you won't live to regret it." Aye. Hinata stammered out as a seal matrix across her forehead started to glow. She looked over at her reflection in the window and saw that it looked like a variation of the caged bird seal, only slightly altered. The caged bird seal was created by the Hyuga clan based off of a seal from the Uzumaki clan, so Naruto had thought it was ironic that he branded her with this servitude seal to keep her in line. "I have something I need to take care of but I'll be back later," Naruto asked. "Okay," Hinata nodded as Naruto stood up and left the tent. Once outside, Naruto closed the curtain and sighed as he looked up at the night sky. "Are you sure this is wise?" Karen asked from the side. "Keep an eye on her," Naruto said finally. "I can feel her emotions and they're a lot like how Haku felt when Zabuza died. She could either be a great asset or a rather annoying problem. That ability to sense negative emotions like fear and anxiety must be very interesting to have. I wonder just how it measures up against my own senses," Karen mused, intrigued. "So what now?" Naruto asked. "Koyuki-hime has requested our services in retaking the land of snow from her uncle and liberating Yukigakure no Sato. I've accepted on our behalf," Karen replied. "Well, we do need a base of operations," Naruto mused. "I'll take Haku and Hinata, they should be enough." "You just want to keep an eye on her," Karen accused. "I wish to see where her loyalties really lie," Naruto admitted. "Meanwhile you and Anoka can stay close to the princess and protect her while we deal with Doto's ninja." Land of Snow, Daimyo Fortress. Kazuhana Doto was always an ambitious and jealous man, especially with a brother that was constantly praised by the people. Sosetsu had always gotten everything he wanted: girls, wealth, a beautiful daughter, and even being named as their father's successor to the Land of Snow's throne. 10 years ago he'd hired Yuki Ninja to aid him in usurping control of the country from his foolish brother and had succeeded only for his niece to escape with the key to the treasure of the Kazuhana clan. Now she was back. So. Dodo spoke thoughtfully. She has returned. Our spies have reported that she has been disguising herself as Fujikaze Yuki, a famous actress that has been traveling around the continent. Currently she has linked up with the remnants of her father's former samurai guards and has even gone as far as to hire some ninja from the mainland. We can also confirm that she still has the hex crystal, Fuyakuma Mizuri informed. Interesting. Dodo mused. And what of these ninjas she has hired? They're probably Nukanin, Kakioka Fubuki suggested. None of them are listed in the bingo books, and other than the fact that 2 of them seem to be siblings judging by their hair, they seem to be just some nobodies. What are you planning, Koyuki? Dodo asked in thought. It's been 10 years, so why would you return now when you know that you will certainly be killed? In any case, I think we should intercept them before they decide to attack the fortress, Raga Nadare spoke up. We will deal with the ninja, personally. I want her brought to me alive, Dodo told them. She and I have much to talk about. I want her to see the fortune of the Kazuhana clan when I take it, only for her to realize that her fate is already sealed. Land of snow, mountain range. Storm clouds were hanging in the sky over them as Naruto, Haku, and Hinata jumped from one ledge to the next through the snow-covered path in the mountains. Their objective was clear. They were to act as a vanguard and diversion for the main force to launch their assault on the enemy stronghold. A good plan, however everyone knew that no plan survives contact with the enemy. Dodo and his cronies had no doubt already been informed that they were here and would set up a trap. Menma-sama. We have company. Hinata shouted with her Byakugan active. I know, Naruto nodded. I sense it too. They were proven right when an airship appeared from behind the mountain and swung round, bringing its racks of kunao accelerating emplacements to bear on the 3. Scatter, the blonde Uzumaki yelled as a hail of kunao descended upon them, forcing them to take cover under the snow. High above the mountain, Fubuki watched the 3 vainly try to dodge the onslaught even as more kunao were fired down at them. So easy, Fubuki said as she extended the wings of her chakra armor and jumped out of the airship. The wings shot open and she flew even as Mizuri soon jumped out after her, his snowboard activating as he dropped down towards the soon-to-be battlefield. Die you trash, Fubuki sneered as she flew over the 3 ninja below and dropped a series of ice bombs. The small ball-shaped bombs struck the ground and massive spikes of ice shot up from the ground in all directions, forcing the 3 to jump away in order to escape. We have them now. Mizuri shouted in glee as he closed in on Hinata and landed a solid punch to her face, only to blink in surprise when she disappeared in a poof of smoke upon contact. Huh. A clone? Fubuki asked, surprised only to see the other 2 disappear in poofs of smoke too. They were all clones, she asked, suddenly worried as a 3-pronged kunao flew at her from the side only to ping off her chakra armor. Hiraishin no Jutsu, she heard the whisper as Naruto and Haku appeared behind her in a yellow flash but couldn't turn in time before Haku swung Kubikari Basho and sent her crashing down into the snow-covered mountain below. That should have cleaved her in half. What happened? Naruto asked as he and Haku landed on a pair of the recently formed ice spikes. Why you? Mizuri growled out before turning his snowboard and quickly started towards the 2. Shigohaka Rokya Juyansho. Hinata's voice echoed as dome of interconnecting blade-like beams of chakra intercepted Mizuri and sent him crashing back into the snow, his skateboard shattering a moment later. Damn you, Fubuki gritted out as she rose, her hands already formed a hand seal. Hayaton, sub-aim Fubuki, dozens of swallow-shaped formed from the snow and quickly flew at both Naruto and Haku. Hayaton, Hisatsu Hayaso, Haku countered as large spikes of ice shot up from the ground, skewering the attacking swallows. It's the armor they're wearing. Hinata shouted to her teammates. It's created some kind of chakra barrier around them. I don't think ninjutsu or genjutsu will affect them like this. Their armor, huh? Naruto mused. Haku, Hinata, you handle these 2 while I deal with the one in charge. Yes, Menma-sama, Haku and Hinata acknowledged together. I take it you're the leader of your little band. Nadare asked as he dropped down not too far away. Shall we play a little? Hayaton, Hiro no Jutsu. Fubuki exclaimed, hoping to catch the rebel ninja off guard, and succeeded in encasing Naruto and Haku in ice. I got them. Bunshin Debakaha, Naruto's voice whispered from behind her before Naruto and Haku exploded violently in a torrent of flames. When did they? Fubuki thought in surprise as she turned. Shotai! Hinata called out as she quickly closed the gap between her and Misery before landing a solid open-palmed strike right at her victim's heart. He gasped as he was thrown back, blood bursting from his mouth before hitting the ground. Damn these brats, Nadare gritted out in anger as he formed a hand seal. Hayaton, Haryumoko, he exclaimed as a dozen tigers made of snow formed further up the mountain and barreled down towards them. Haku, Hinata, Naruto spoke and the two dropped back to his side. He threw a three-pronged kunao up into the air as his two teammates grabbed hold of his shoulders. Hiraishin no jutsu, he whispered just before the avalanche-like attack descended upon them. The three appeared high above the battlefield before falling back down to the now rapidly calming mountain. Why won't you just die? Nadare shouted as Fubuki landed at his side. Hayaton, Makyo Hayasho, Haku whispered as a dome of ice mirrors formed around the two surviving Yukinins. Goodbye, she said to them as she appeared in all of the mirrors. A second later the two were cut in half, courtesy of her cubic Aribisho moments before the ice mirrors shattered. I see your speed with those mirrors has improved, Naruto commented. Speed is power, Haku reasoned. You and your father proved that, Menma-sama. True, Naruto nodded before turning to Hinata. You did well, Hinata-chan, she smiled shyly at his words. Now let's go save this country. Land of Snow, Daimyo Fortress. The fortress was on fire as Karen walked through the stone hallways towards the throne room with Koyuki following close behind. Doto had assumed that even with Nadare and his team gone, the rest of the shinobi he'd hired would be enough to deal with his annoying niece and her little pets. Instead Karen and Anoka had systematically annihilated everyone that stood in their path, more on Karen's part though than Anoka's. Despite being twice her age, Karen's rate of progress far outstripped hers by a considerable margin. The fact that she willingly allowed the Yukinins to use jutsu against her so she could absorb their chakra and keep herself fresh would attest to that. She'd been trained for this moment for years by Senju Hashirama and now it was time to put that training to work. The fact that absorbing their chakra allowed her to also increase her own reserves made it clear that it was only a matter of time before her reserves were equal to Anoka's. Of course they would never be equal to Naruto's, when it came to chakra reserves his were simply inhuman. By the time he reached 20 his chakra would be as large as Hashirama's was in his prime after he faced Madara for the final time. If Naruto actually reached that level he would be all but unstoppable, and if he was able to gain full control of the Kyuubi's chakra too there wouldn't be anyone alive who could match the amount of chakra he could throw around. That was a thought for another time. Hello uncle, Koyuki spoke clearly as they entered the throne room. You've grown, Koyuki, Doto commented before dozens of Yukinins appeared from the shadows and lunged at the three. Tendo, Shinra Tensei, Karen whispered as a pulse of gravity blasted the Yukinins away with enough force to send them through the walls. You mortals should bow in the presence of a goddess, she spoke with an almost uncaring look. Surrender uncle, Koyuki said to the man. You've lost, despite the fact that he had murdered her father, he was still the only family that he had left. Never. Doto yelled in anger as he threw off his cloak revealing his chakra armor underneath. Hayaton, Kokuryuba Fusetsu, he exclaimed as threw out a fist in their direction. A black dragon made of ice seemed to explode from his hand and descend towards the three. Gakido, Fujitsukyuin, Karen whispered as she brought up her hand to meet the oncoming attack. A barrier formed in front of her and the black ice dragon seemed to collapse and be sucked in until it completely disappeared. Anoka-nichan, finish this. You rely too much on this armor, Anoka spoke as she landed right in front of the snow daimyo. Fun, she muttered as she stabbed the Ozuno Tsurugi right through his chest. He screamed in pain as his body seemed to dissolve and be pulled into the seals on the blade. Finally he was gone. Goodbye uncle, Koyuki spoke sadly before turning away. It's finally over, she smiled softly at that fact. No. Karen said knowingly. I think we're just getting started. Author's notes. 2 chapters this week since I missed last week's update. I'd just like to say since some of you that have reviewed seem to dislike the path this story is taking, the entire idea for this story was for Naruto to take a path almost exactly the same as Obito did in canon. That was its original concept when I thought of it and the reason why Naruto left Shukaku behind for Konoha to retrieve was because manipulate the Akatsuki to oppose Konoha. I will admit that I made one mistake in the 3rd chapter with the Yondaime Kaze cage. To be honest I had completely forgotten about him until I realized that he was supposed to die on his way to the Chunin exam finals along with his escorts. I will say this now just to be clear, Hinata is not a part of Naruto's harem, so there is no Narahina in this story. In canon she redeemed herself during the whole pain invasion thing, but in this story it is simply too late for her to get close to Naruto. I said that Karen was Naruto's primary female companion and she is his love interest, pure and simple. However, this story isn't really a harem fic since Anoka is his guide, Haku is his servant and Hinata can easily become his follower. Naruto still has not finished gathering allies, so Hinata won't be the last that he recruits like Koyuki in this chapter. As for Mei Terumi and Konan being two of the strong kunoichi of the series, I will admit that they're strong by modern standards, but they, just like every other kunoichi in the series, are hopelessly outmatched to the likes of Hashirama, Madara, and Naruto. Konan has my respect for landing a solid blow on Obito, something that only Minato and Naruto, with Kakashi's help, have been able to do. However, Obito still killed her, and that was before he took Nagato's Rinnegan. Yukagaku no Sato was possibly the least known of all shinobi villages in the entirety of the elemental nations, both because of its location and the fact that as a general rule they didn't associate with others. The fact that Doto had effectively had the entire country in lockdown for the last 10 years also made it all but impossible for anyone to infiltrate and cause trouble. In many ways its policy of isolation was a lot like that of Omegaku no Sato, with the only real difference being that it didn't have anyone of S rank like Hanzo leading the village or the sheer industrialization that AIM was known for. However, though no one knew because of its isolation, Yuki and the Land of Snow as a whole were more technologically advanced than the other nations, with airships, steam trains, and the recently created cannons thanks to the Kazehana clan's wealth and accumulated knowledge. The Land of Snow itself was a small island nation far to the east past both the Land of Water and the Land of Lightning. The distance between it and the mainland made a full-scale assault on the small nation very difficult. In fact, only Kiri had the naval forces needed to launch a campaign against Yuki, much like they did decades ago when they, along with Iwa and Kumo, destroyed Uzushio. However, unlike Uzushio, Yuki didn't have a large number of quality ninja in their forces. Until now, that is. I am not going to call you Yukakage-sama, Karen spoke flatly as the masked blonde in front of her leaned back in her new chair. And get out of my seat before I throw you out, Menma-kun. Come on, Karen-chan, Naruto grinned from behind his mask. Just once please, he pleaded. Menma is a good boy. For the last time, no. Karen shouted, now on her last nerve. You're so mean, Naruto pouted before standing up. Fine, ruin my fun, why don't you? We have more pressing issues right now, Karen sighed as she sat down in her chair. The fact is that though we liberated the country from Doto's rule, and Koyuki Haim is doing a remarkable job at restoring the nation to its former glory, especially with that environmental control device her father was working on to change the Land of Snow into a Land of Spring, the fact is that the ninja need a strong leader to look up to, and neither of us has any knowledge on running a shinobi village. What are you suggesting? Naruto asked. Senjutsunade, Karen replied. The granddaughter of Hashirama-sama, currently she is wandering about gambling away the Senju fortune after her brother and lover died during the Second War. I say we find her and get her to join us. Hashirama-sama did ask me once to set her back on the right path and not the self-destructive one that she is on now. Someone will have to look after the village while we're gone, Naruto reasoned. Who do you have in mind? Ano Kanichan, Karen answered. She's the oldest of us and has the most knowledge on these kinds of things, even though she hates leading people. I can use my Hiraishin no Jutsu to teleport us back to the mainland so we won't need a ship or anything, Naruto mused. Same for getting back unnoticed. Oh, I almost forgot, Karen added before reaching under the desk and taking out a large scroll. Ano Kanichan found this in the vault. It's a summoning scroll for the Hawks. She told me to give it to you, she explained as she handed over the scroll. Why don't you sign it? Naruto asked curiously as he examined the scroll. Weren't the Hawks what Hashirama-sensei summoned all the time? I can already summon various animals thanks to my Rinnegan, Karen waved off his question. Sign it and let's go tell the others we'll be leaving. The sooner we track down Tsunade-sama, the sooner we can return home. Home. He used to think of Konoha as home, but that was before this all started, back before he knew the truth about his clan, his family, his parents, and everything else. Out of all the villages in the elemental nations, Hashirama-sama had chosen this one for them to call their home because, unlike the others, Yuki hadn't ever done anything to harm the Uzumaki and Senju clans. They had stayed out of every single shinobi war to date and were recognized as a neutral nation like the Land of Iron. A perfect base of operations for their group to call home. Suddenly Naruto didn't feel so lost anymore. Land of Fire, Tanzaku Town. Hiraishin no Jutsu, Naruto whispered as he appeared on the outskirts of town with Karen holding onto his shoulder. We're here, he said as she removed her hand from his shoulder and looked around. They'd appeared just outside of town where a Hiraishin seal had been left on the ground by the late Namikaze Minato when he was still alive. Anything. I can sense 2 large chakra signatures in the town, Karen replied. The larger of the 2 is larger than yours. I take offense to that, Naruto told her with a slight glare. Men, Karen huffed before entering the town. Let's just find Tsunade-sama before I end up killing you. You should lighten up a little once in a while, Naruto grumbled as he followed. This woman will be the death of me. I won, asked a surprised and worried Senju Tsunade as she left the gambling hall with her apprentice following close behind. All her life she had been gambling, and rarely had she ever won a bet. The only times that she did win, something terribly bad usually happened soon after. Isn't this great, Tsunade-sama? Shizune asked. Now we can pay off some of your debts. Not now Shizune, Tsunade told her. I never win and when I do, something is always about to go wrong. Tsunade-sama. Shizune trailed off now worried. Alright, come out, Tsunade spoke up suddenly. I know you're there so there's no point in hiding. A second later 2 blurs landed in front of the 2 adult kunoichi. Who are you and what do you want? The first was a girl with blood-red hair wearing an Uzushio headband of all things and glasses. Her long black cloak with a white outline covered her form from view but judging by her looks she couldn't be more than 15, maybe 16. The second was a boy at least she thought he was male with blonde hair wearing a white kitsune mask and dressed in the same black cloak with a white outline that his apparent partner wore. Senju Tsunade, the girl asked. My name is Uzumaki Karen and this is Menma. We are here to give you something that your grandfather, Senju Hashirama-sama asked us to deliver to you. My grandfather? Tsunade muttered confused. What is it and how do you know him? You two can't be any older than 16, my grandfather died back during the first shinobi war long before your time. Like the old man would die so damn easily, the boy chuckled. Don't tell me you really believe that Senju Hashirama, the man who is spoken about as myth and legend like that of the Rakudo Sennin would die so easily after defeating both Uchiha Madara and the Kyuubi no Yoko. Brat, what are you saying? Tsunade questioned with narrowed eyes. Hashirama-sama faked his death back during the first shinobi war with the help of your grandmother, Mito-sama, Karen explained. He finally passed away a few weeks ago in an underground hideaway in the ruins of Uzushio. He asked me once to set you back on the right path and here I am. Why you've got to be he was alive all this time? Tsunade questioned in shock. They weren't lying to her, she realized, they had no reason to and had to know that she would kill them if this was some kind of joke. Why wasn't he there when Nawaki his own grandson needed him then? Despite his power and strength, even he could not defeat the aging process. His medical ninjutsu was rivaled only by your own allowing him to prolong his life until his body simply couldn't run from the Shinigami any longer, Naruto answered. The old man was tough, there's no doubt about that. What do you want from me exactly? Tsunade asked the 2 Uzumaki. We're family, Naruto replied despite his own disbelief at his own words. Even after a year, he was still getting used to the fact that he now had a family, a clan to call his own. And family stick together, we're here to ask you to join us in re-establishing the Uzumaki Senju clan and bringing peace to this cursed world. Peace? Tsunade asked confused. Hashirama-sama trained us both to bring about a new age for the shinobi world, Karen explained. He wanted us to bring about a revolution on a scale akin to the founding of the shinobi nations themselves. That's a tall order, Tsunade whistled at that. You're talking about going up against the entire continent. It's the least we can do, Naruto responded. The old man gave us something that no one else did, he gave us a chance to do something right and protect the people we care about. The least we can do is try and fulfill his wish for a peaceful world without any war for those he left behind. Tell you what, Tsunade smirked. If you can defeat me then I'll go with you and I'll even throw in my grandfather's necklace. Tsunade-sama. Shizune trailed off becoming increasingly worried. And if we lose? Karen inquired. Then you'll leave me alone and I'll never see either of you again, Tsunade replied. One more time, please just one more time. Secretly she wanted to lose but they all knew that she wouldn't hold back. Alright then, Naruto nodded in agreement. Let's go wild. Sure do. Karen exclaimed as her hand detached from her arm with only a long wire-like beam connecting the two, littered with dozens of small bullet-shaped spikes attached. The small projectiles launched in a volley of flame and smoke before raining down on the fleeing Tsunade. Is she some kind of machine? Tsunade asked in thought as she evaded the fast-moving projectiles. They struck the ground around her and exploded in a torrent of fire, forcing her to jump away. That's an interesting ability, she mused as she landed back on solid ground. Hiraishin no Jutsu, she heard the whisper as a familiar three-pronged kunao land beside her. That's Tsunade thought as Naruto appeared at her side. Raise non, the masked blonde called out as he slammed the spinning chakra sphere into her gut faster than she could counter. Shit, Tsunade thought as the spiraling sphere exploded and she was blown back with enough force to shatter the boulder that she'd been blasted into. Infun, Kai, she whispered as she stood back up. The seal on her forehead soon started to spread across her body as chakra that she long since started gathering flooded her system. Sozo Saisei, she declared as she brought her now glowing green hand to her wound and they watched as it rapidly healed before their eyes. What the hell is that? Naruto asked. Medical ninjutsu, Karen answered. Though it is not as advanced as Hashirama-sama's own, it will undoubtedly make this fight much harder. Mokyuton, Daijurin no Jutsu. Naruto exclaimed as he raised his arm and it quickly transformed into a large tree that shot at the Senja woman. That's my grandfather's jutsu. Tsunade thought in shock before disappearing in a burst of speed. She's fast, Naruto mused as she reappeared above him with her leg raised. Mokyuton, Mokyajoki, he whispered as a dome of wood erupted from the ground and locked in place between the two. Hiraishin no Jutsu, he disappeared a second later and reappeared beside Karen who he'd marked with his seal before they'd even returned to the mainland. Tsutenkyaku. Tsunade called out as she brought her foot down on the dome causing it and the earth around it to break apart and upturn, changing the landscape of the battlefield. Jumped again, there's no doubt about it now. That's Minato's Hiraishin no Jutsu, but I thought it died with him so how could this boy know it? Her chakra control and physical strength is top-notch, Naruto commented. She's stronger than the Sandaime Hokage at any rate. Even to this day she is idolized as the strongest woman in the world, Karen responded. I can certainly see why. You brats. Tsunade said darkly as she rushed at them. Ranshinsho, she whispered as her hands seemed to spark. Gakido, Fujitsukyuin, Karen spoke as she raised her hand. Tsunade's eyes as she made contact only for the chakra in her jutsu to be pulled out of her and sucked into what looked like a barrier that had formed between the pair. How did she? Tsunade started as she pulled back her other hand and threw a punch intending to take the red-haired girl's head off. Tendo, Shinra Tensei. Karen called out as a pulse of gravity blasted Tsunade away and sent the blonde Senju crashing into upturned battlefield. That wasn't a shockwave, Tsunade thought as she shook her head and stood up once more. Just then Karen discarded her glasses revealing her rippled purple eyes causing the Senju woman to freeze at the sight of them. Those eyes, they can't be. Jiraiya was telling the truth after all. I think it's about time we ended this, Naruto spoke up. Who are you two exactly? One of you has my grandfather's bloodline and is able to do the same kind of Jakuken ninjutsu as the Yondaime Hokage while the other has the Rinnegan of all things. I recognize those eyes that were said to be wielded by the Kami no Shinobi, the Rakudo Sennin, Tsunade questioned with a glare. We are the ones who will establish peace and order, Karen declared. Chikushodo, Kukiyos no Jutsu, she said clearly as she placed her hand down on the ground causing seals to spread across the surface. A moment later Karen was standing atop the head of a large golden lion with the Rinnegan just like hers. A summoning. Tsunade thought as she bit her thumb and formed a hand seal. Kukiyos no Jutsu, a second later the massive slug Katsuyu appeared behind her. Tsunade-sama? Why have you summoned me? Katsuyu asked. I'm facing two kids with the bloodlines of my grandfather and the Rakudo Sennin. I can't afford to hold back even if they are kids, Tsunade replied. But that's dash, Katsuyu stammered in surprise at her summoner's words. I know it's not possible but the proof is right in front of you, Tsunade countered. Kukiyos no Jutsu. Naruto exclaimed as he jumped into the air and a large hawk appeared in a poof of smoke to catch him. So this is the human realm. It's been a while since I was last summoned here, the hawk commented. Is that Katsuyu Dano? I guess she's my opponent, huh. Sorry to call you to fight after just signing the summoning contract but I need your help, Naruto said clearly. Why not? It's been a while since I've fought someone, the hawk almost seemed to grin as it looked back at the masked blonde riding on his back. The name's Takamaru, remember it. Call me Menma for now, Naruto smiled back from behind his mask. I'll tell you my real name when we're not out in the open like this. You're an interesting one, Takamaru mused before flapping his wings and then circling round to bear on the giant slug below. Let's go. Naruto shouted as they turned and dived. That's my grandfather's hawk summoning contract, it's been lost for decades so how could he have it? Tsunade thought as she looked up at the descending hawk. Katsuyu, watch out, she spoke up with narrowed eyes as Karen's golden lion lunged at the giant slug. Zes Shinen-san. Katsuyu bellowed as she unleashed a stream of acid at the attacking lion. Gakido, Fujitsukyuin. Karen called out as she quickly absorbed the acid. So she's even able to absorb that kind of jutsu too, Tsunade mused as the lion bit into the slug's side and pinned her down. Get off of her, the blonde Senju shouted as she jumped up and landed a solid punch to the lion's jaw, knocking it away with incredible force. Mokyuton, Mokyuzatsu Shibari no Jutsu. Naruto exclaimed from above as Takamaru dropped from the sky and stopped just a few meters off of the ground. Naruto's arm changed into wood once again and sprouted off, wrapping around Katsuyu and retraining her in a wooden harness. Katsuyu! Tsunade shouted in surprise. Katsuyu de Bunritsu. A moment later Katsuyu seemed to burst into hundreds of smaller slugs and fell through the gaps in the wooden restraint. That's enough, Tsunade said finally. We're finished here, she added a moment later. Are you giving up? Naruto asked as Takamaru landed. And it was just getting good too, Takamaru grumbled. You two are strong, Tsunade said with a small smile. And judging by the fact that you can use Mokyuton, you must be a member of the Senju clan. The only other Mokyuton user I know has about the same level of skill in using it that you have, but he's twice your age. Only a Senju can possibly wield the full power of that bloodline, so that makes you, family. She had long since given up on family, and yet now that she thought about it, not only did she feel better than she had in years, but she also noticed that she hadn't even taken notice that she'd been covered in blood from her wounds earlier. It seems her fear of blood had disappeared too. So you'll come with us? Karen asked as she landed beside the Senju woman. Yes, Tsunade nodded as a worried Shizune approached. As soon as I give you something, she added as she took off her grandfather's necklace. I believe this belongs to you, she said as she handed it to Naruto once he dismounted from Takamaru's back. It was my grandfather's. You could buy a mountain with it, though my grandfather originally created it to aid him in suppressing the Biju. I see, Naruto nodded. Thank you, he said as he took the necklace and put it on. Are you sure about this, Tsunade-sama? Shizune asked her master. It's alright, Shizune, Tsunade smiled back over her shoulder. I think this is what my brother and your uncle would have wanted. Okay, Shizune nodded with a knowing smile. Let's go home, Naruto offered. Omegakure no Sato was the most industrialized of all shinobi villages and was perhaps the most infamous. The legendary salamander Hanzo had protected and led this village through the last 3 shinobi wars and was the only real reason it was still standing. Despite being a small nation that was often used by the larger powers to do battle, it was now incredibly difficult to even enter the country ever since it had gone into lockdown. That was why when the god of pain, Uzumaki Nagato, and his angel, Konan had come and killed Hanzo along with all of his supporters, none of the other nations even knew that there was a new leader in AIM. Nagato had gone further, creating an alias for himself called Pain, whom had originally founded the Akatsuki with Konan and their friend Yahiko. Now after Yahiko's death, their benefactor, a man calling himself Uchiha Madara, had come to them with a plan to break the chains of hatred that had consumed this cursed world. They would capture the 9 Biju and seal them away inside the Gadomazo, a monstrous statue that could be summoned with the Rinnegan's outer path. Once sealed, Nagato could then use the captured Biju in the statue to create a weapon so powerful it could destroy a nation in an instant. By supplying this weapon to different factions, its use would make everyone scared to go to war or risk total annihilation as a result. That plan had a rather significant setback, however. The Kyuubijan hierarchy died a year ago, so that means that it will be 8 more years before it reforms. With the death of the Sanbaijin hierarchy that was also killed last year during the recent Kiri civil war, the Sanbai should be reformed within 2 years. We will capture and seal the Sanbai as soon as it reforms before Kiri can reclaim it. That way our actions will go unnoticed. Pain spoke clearly to the other holographic members of their organization, the Akatsuki. And when do we move? Haiden asked annoyed. Jashin-sama demands sacrifices. We will continue to act as a mercenary group for now, and in 7 years we will begin hunting the Biju. By the time that the Kyuubi reforms we will have already captured the rest of the Biju, Pain replied. Dismissed. A second later the holograms dissolved. Nagato. Konan asked from his side. I am fine, Konan, Nagato responded. This is a minor setback, that is all. Indeed, spoke Uchiha Madara from the shadows. I didn't think that the Jin hierarchy would disappear like this after living in Konoha after the Kyuubi attack for 12 years. It is merely an addition of time, Pain countered. We will still capture the Biju, it will just take us a bit longer to accomplish our goals before we are to bring peace to this world. You are a fool, Nagato, thought Madara as his Sharingan glowed through the eye hole in his orange spiral mask. There is no peace other than the Moon's Eye plan, images of his old life as Uchiha Obito flashed through his mind at that. I will create a world where you are alive, Rin. Summon Realm, Shikotsurin. Summon creatures are incredibly hard to find because they don't really live in the outside world where shinobi are constantly at war. Most of the summoned races each had their own small dimensional space to call home, and the only way to reach them were to either sign a contract with one and be reverse summoned or find a portal capable of taking you there. In their youth, those that would later be called Sunin had found these portals and were able to negotiate with the toads, slugs and snakes in order to sign their contracts. Out of all of the many summoned creatures in this strange world of theirs, 3 stood up as the strongest and most dangerous of them all, surpassed only by the likes of the Biju themselves. The first were the toads of Myabokuzen, powerful warriors who could reach the size of a Biju, led by their mighty toad boss Gamabunta and the 2 elders, Fukazaku and Shima. The second were the poisonous snakes of Ryukidled by Manda, though the real power in their race was held by the white snake sage. Finally there were the hawks of Shikotsurin. Gyaku Kuki Yos no Jutsu, spoke Takamaru as he brought his claw down and seals spread across the stone floor. Naruto appeared in a poof of smoke a moment later, causing him to fall slightly before catching himself. What just happened? Naruto asked as a 3-pronged kunai appeared in his hand. I summoned you, Takamaru answered. Welcome to the home of the Hawk clan, the boss lady wants to speak with you. Okay, Naruto nodded as he put away the kunai. Lead the way, he gestured. Follow me, Takamaru said as he turned and led the way through the massive hollowed-out cavern. He flapped his wings and took to the air before turning and flying off towards a large pool of water at the other end of the cavern. Naruto followed close behind, running along the side of the cavern wall before landing beside Takamaru. I've brought him, the hawk declared. Good. Spoke a soft female voice as a large female hawk rose from the water. Uzumaki Naruto, the discarded child of prophecy, it's a pleasure to meet you, savior of this world. I'm not a savior yet, Naruto countered. And how do you know my name? Would you prefer that I call you Menma instead? Or perhaps Senju Hashirama, the female hawk asked back. A name means nothing to me, you simply are. I am Setsuna, the current leader of the Hawk clan, and as our summoner I expect great things from you just like my mother expected much the same from him. Doesn't everyone? Naruto muttered. What did you call me here for? I'm going to train you to complete your destiny, Setsuna replied. As powerful as you are still not strong enough to complete the task that has been given to you. So as our summoner I expect you to be the best there is, to that end I will personally train you in the hidden arts of our clan. I will train you in Senjutsu, here in our home. Senjutsu? Naruto asked, having not heard of the term. It is the power of the world itself, Setsuna explained. Those who master it are granted the title of sage like the Rakuto Sennin of old. Do you wish to learn, summoner? Yes, Naruto nodded. Then shall we being? Jinhuriki seal, Naruto's mindscape. It had been 4 years since he'd left Konoha and 3 since he'd joined Yuki. A now 16-year-old Naruto stood before the massive steel gates of the seal, imprisoning the massive and dangerous Kyuubi no Yoko without his mask on. He'd grown by leaps and bounds since leaving Konoha, and now here he was, ready to take the next big step on the road to greatness. Spooky glare, as usual, Naruto commented upon seeing the fox. Naruto, you. The Kyuubi trailed off with narrowed eyes. What are you plotting? He asked as Naruto ripped off the paper seal on the gate and threw off his cloak. Shut up and let me concentrate. Damn it, Naruto countered as he lifted his jacket and exposed the seal on his stomach. Here we go, he muttered as he pulled back the sleeve on his right arm, revealing the key seal he'd received from his father's clone 4 years ago. You. The Kyuubi mused with widening eyes as the seal unraveled. I see, he said as the last of the seal dissolved and he smashed open the steel gates. You've made one big mistake, Naruto, the fox shouted as he let loose a shockwave that shattered the sewer-like mindscape, turning it into a black void with a wet floor. I can take you on, Naruto countered. And what about the real you? The Kyuubi sneered with amusement. The real me? Naruto asked confused. He means me, answered a dark and twisted voice from behind him. What? Naruto thought in surprise. He hadn't expected to encounter anyone else in here besides the fox, so it came as quite a surprise when he saw another him with red demonic eyes and covered in the Kyuubi's chakra with 3 tails. Who the hell are you? He questioned the clone. I'm you, the demon Naruto replied. I'm the real you. You'd need to deal with your real self first before even attempting to gain control of my power, the Kyuubi chuckled darkly. But that doesn't matter anymore because I'm going to kill both of you right here and now. This isn't going to be easy, Naruto thought as he watched the start to gather red and blue chakra spheres into a large black ball at its mouth. Oh shit. Bijudama, the Kyuubi bellowed as he unleashed the compressed chakra sphere at the 2 parts of his Jinhira ki. Jakuken Kekai. Naruto countered as he brought up a 3-pronged kunao. The sphere slammed into the barrier and was sucked in before Naruto turned and released the sphere behind him, right at the dark Naruto. The dark Naruto Yami's eyes widened as he pulled on more of the Kyuubi's chakra even as the sphere engulfed him and exploded in a dome of destructive power. The Kyuubi really is on a different level than the other Biju. You're going to pay for that. Yami shouted in anger as the smoke cleared. He was now encased in a red haze of chakra that covered his form completely, even his face was now a black mask with white eyes. 4 tails swayed behind him and judging by the bubbling around him it was only a matter of time before he started sprouting even more tails. I have to take them out one at a time or I can't win, Naruto thought as he formed a series of hand seals. Mokyuton, Makuryu no Jutsu, he exclaimed as a large wooden dragon erupted from the ground and wrapped around the Kyuubi. This is Dash, the Kyuubi snarled in anger as he bit down on the wooden dragon only for it to quickly drain his chakra at an alarming rate. Damn you Naruto. Now to deal with the other one, Naruto thought as he turned to the now attacking Yami. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he whispered as a pair of clones appeared at his side. The 3 quickly brought their hands together and formed a small spinning chakra ball in the original's hand. A bell-like screech echoed throughout the mindscape as wind chakra was soon infused into the spiraling sphere creating spinning white blades around the middle of the ball. Yoko Raise Non. Yami roared as he formed a red demonic chakra sphere of his own in his right hand. Futon, Raise Non, the original Naruto called out as the 2 attacks clashed. A tornado of wind formed around the 2 as red and blue chakra lashed out and tore at the destroyed mindscape. After a moment the winds died down revealing both Naruto and Yami standing with their hands extended and their backs to each other. After a moment of silence Yami dropped to his knees, still covered in the Kyuubi's chakra as a 5th and 6th tail formed followed soon by a white bone exoskeleton. I can't lose here, Yami stammered as the chakra started to quickly overpower him. Mokyuton, Kakwan Nitten Suishu. Naruto exclaimed as a seal appeared on his hand and 10 wooden pillars rose up around Kyuubi-fied Yami. It's over for you, Naruto declared as he slammed his hand into the back of his darker self. A green line formed between as he jumped back to avoid Yami's chakra tails and the pillars quickly pinned him down. Damn it! Yami yelled out as his body shattered and was pulled into Naruto through the green chakra line. 1 down, Naruto declared as he turned towards the Kyuubi. 1 to go. You. The Kyuubi trailed off in anger. You think I'll just submit to you without a fight? I'm going to rip you to shreds, he shouted as the wood dragon shattered around him. Senjutsu, Senin Moto, Naruto muttered as natural energy flooded his system. His eyes turned gold as the pupil elongated into vertical slits with dark red rings around his eyes signifying his ascension into Sage mode. He'd been training with the Hawks for 2 years in order to master this form and he was glad that he did, otherwise he wouldn't have even thought about facing the Kyuubi like this in combat. Tajukage Bunshin no Jutsu, he called out as hundreds of shadow clones appeared around him. You haven't won yet, the Kyuubi snarled as Naruto jumped high into the air with a pair of clones. The 2 clones quickly brought their hands together like they had done before and formed a familiar chakra ball. Again wind chakra was infused into it to create the echoing bell-like screech, however unlike before the wind blades on the sphere elongated taking the appearance of a shuriken. Futon, Raisin Shuriken. Naruto exclaimed as he threw the chakra shuriken right at the Kyuubi. The demon fox watched with wide eyes as the shuriken closed in and hit him in the nose before expanding into a rotating ball of wind and power that seemed to encompass his entire body. Now, the original Naruto shouted to his clones. The wind ball exploded, blowing the Kyuubi back. However, a ghostly form of the fox's chakra remained, which the clones quickly pulled into themselves before dispelling. Naruto landed as the last of the chakra and his clones was dispelled and was returned to him. A golden flame-like chakra shroud enveloped his form along with a seal matrix stretching from his stomach to his shoulders, forming a necklace of Megatama around his neck. The familiar key seal stretched from his shoulder down to his palm just like before he opened the seal. That form. The Kyuubi trailed off in both anger and surprise. The Rakudo Sennin. This chakra is. Naruto said before shaking himself before bringing the key seal to his new Jinhira key seal. Fun, he whispered as he turned the seal. Several tori dropped from the void above and quickly pinned the Kyuubi to the wet floor, causing him to snarl and thrash as the tori interlocked, forming a cage around the defeated tailed beast. I won't forget this, Naruto, the Kyuubi roared as it sank back into the darkness behind the new seal. I'm sorry Kyuubi, but I'm going to have to ask you to wait just a little longer, Naruto said as he turned away. Just hang in there and someday you'll be free again. You humans never say what you really mean, the Kyuubi snarled from the darkness. Maybe that's true, Naruto admitted. But you've known me for my entire life, you should know by now that I prefer to let my actions speak for me better than my words ever could. A moment later he was gone. Old man Rakudo, the Kyuubi Kurama mused silently. Could he be the one you spoke about? Land of Fire, Konoha/Training Ground 7. A 21-year-old Uchiha Sasuke stood in front of the memorial stone staring at the name of the one person he would forever think of as a hero. His best friend and rival had died almost 9 years ago to the day, and it was all because he was too weak to save him back then. Haruno Sakura and Sarutobi Konohamaru were no doubt waiting at their meeting spot over on one of the southern bridges in the village that had been built to cross over the street that ran through the village. As for Kakashi. Back again, Sasuke, the now 35-year-old Heitake Kakashi asked as he approached his prized student. You've been coming here more than me lately, he commented. At least now I understand why you're always late, Sasuke countered as his sensei stood next to him. If you could go back and do it all over again, would you? Absolutely, Kakashi nodded as he stared at the names of his teammates, his family engraved upon the memorial stone. None of them should have died, and I'm worse than trash for not being able to save any of them. Is there something you wanted? You're usually here before me, Sasuke asked curiously. It's about your brother, Kakashi replied, causing the Uchiha to freeze at his words. Hokage-sama has just informed me, Itachi is on the move along with the rest of the Akatsuki organization. Word has it that they've already captured the Sanbai, Rokubai, and Nanabi. It appears that the reason they've been keeping their heads down for all these years, is because they've been waiting for the Kyuubi to reform after it died with Naruto 9 years ago. The Kyuubi. Sasuke trailed off. We can't let Itachi get control of something like that. And we won't, Kakashi nodded. Hokage-sama thinks that the Akatsuki will be coming after Konohamaru-kun soon, so he wants us on the move as much as possible so they aren't able to track him down as easily as they can if he remains in Konoha. Where are we going? Sasuke asked the question. Suna, Kakashi answered. It's just a diplomatic mission. For the last 9 years Orochimaru, the self-proclaimed Otokage of Otagaku no Sato, had been plotting and scheming in order to complete his ambition, to gain the Sharingan. With it he could master any jutsu, and to acquire it, he had planned to take control of the body of an Uchiha. Sadly, the eldest of the Uchiha clan heirs had massacred most of the clan, leaving his younger brother and that man alive. This had the unfortunate side effect of limiting his choice of candidates to take over, and this was made worse when he discovered that both of the Uchiha heirs had awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, making it all but impossible for him to directly take over their bodies. It was a major setback that had forced him to give up on the idea of taking over the body of an Uchiha until one of them settled down and had children. He would have to wait for the time when the children of either Itachi or Sasuke had been born and matured enough for him to attempt to take over. There was no need to rush, however. After all, he was immortal and so could wait forever if need be. Sooner or later he'd have a prized Sharingan of his own, and by that time he would have perfected his immortality jutsu to the point that he could live a natural human lifespan in his new vessel before being forced to transfer. It was only a matter of time. As he turned a corner in the darkened hallway, the sound of a kunao coming at him caught his attention and his head moved to the side. A familiar three-pronged kunao flew past him, making his eyes go wide in both surprise and recognition. A flash of yellow light was soon followed by a gasp as an equally familiar chakra sphere was embedded in his gut. Hiration no Jutsu, the attacker spoke. Raise non, the spiraling sphere exploded violently, blowing him back and send him crashing through the wall at the intersection. About what I expected, he commented as he raised his hood revealing his white kitsune mask. Who are you? Orochimaru questioned in anger as he rose from the rubble holding his wounded side. His mouth opened wide and another Orochimaru climbed out, leaving the first one to deflate and fall to the floor. You dare to attack me here, the Otokage demanded. It's about time I stepped out into the open, Naruto spoke clearly. I will show this world the peace that it has never had with my power, the powerful of Senju Hashirama. Senju Hashirama. Orochimaru trailed off before chuckling. Don't take me for a fool, he's long dead. You can't be him, you just can't. I have no need to explain myself to the likes of you, Naruto countered as he formed a hand seal. Mokuton, Jukai Koten, an entire forest seemed to erupt from the ground upwards, smashing through the ceiling and shook the entire base. That was. Orochimaru thought as he landed on one of the branches. There's no doubt about, that was a Mokuton jutsu created by the Shodei Hokage. Judging by the blonde hair, he must be related to Tsunade. Did she secretly conceive a child while away from Konoha? Shall we continue? Naruto asked from one of the nearby branches. Ningendo, Karen whispered as she forcefully ripped out the souls of Jirobo, Seikon, and Yukon. You should all bow in the presence of a goddess, she spoke calmly as if she had not just ended 3 lives like they were nothing. Who the hell are you, bitch? Teiwa questioned with anger in her voice. I am the one who will establish peace and order, Karen responded as she raised her hand. And I believe I told you to bow. The last word was punctuated with a sudden wave of oppressive chakra that almost forced the 2 remaining members of the Sound Four to their knees. Like hell I'll bow to you. Kidomaru shouted as his level 2 curse seal activated and quickly created a webbed bow in his hands. Kyumo Senkyo, Suzaku, he said as he let loose an arrow right at the Uzumaki woman. Tendo, Shinra Tensei, Karen spoke as gravity rippled around her and exploded outwards. The room they stood in was blown apart as not only the arrow but also both Teiwa and Kidomaru were thrown back with incredible force. Sunlight shone on the down-uncovered portion of the underground base where Karen had just created a massive crater. They're not even worth my time, she sighed before jumping away. He just wouldn't die no matter how many times she slashed at him. His Suka no Jutsu allowed him to turn into water, essentially making her swings go right through him without leaving any lasting damage. Her teammate was having similar difficulty with the other one. The monster of a man with orange hair had transformed into a rampaging animal by activating his level 3 curse seal. That's the Kyubikarei Basho, huh? Suijutsu asked upon seeing the blade. Finally I can start my collection. You are not getting your hands on this sword, Haku glared back. You can't even hurt me, Suijutsu laughed as Haku jumped away and quickly formed a set of hand seals. Now what are you doing? He asked curiously. Hayaton, Namida right talk. Haku called out as ice formed at Suijutsu's feet. What is th dash, Suijutsu stammered as he was frozen in a block of ice. His water-like body acting as both a catalyst and a means to sustain his icy prison. Haku sighed as she attached the Kyubikarei Basho onto her back with chakra. She'd created this jutsu in order to flash freeze her opponents and use their own chakra cores to keep them frozen. Not too far away, the monstrous form of Yugo laughed as he unleashed a barrage of chakra beams at the fast-moving Hyuga Hinata. Her Byakugan was active as she easily evaded the assault before turning on heel and then lunging right at Yugo. Yugo's laughter was cut short as 2 large lion heads formed from chakra that coated the Hyuga Kunoichi's hands. Juho Sashiken, she exclaimed as she slammed the chakra lion heads into Yugo's chest. He was blown back with 2 large holes in his chest and couldn't help but scream as he struck the ground with an echoing crash, blowing up dirt and smoke upon impact. Are you done too? Haku asked after a moment of silence. He's dead, Hinata replied with a nod. We should regroup with the others. Agreed, Haku nodded and the 2 jumped into the trees. The longer this went on, the more worried Orochimaru was becoming. So far he hadn't been able to get even one good hit in on his masked assailant. He'd just been getting knocked around and beaten by Senju Hashirama, of all people. Not since he and his teammates had been defeated by Hanzo back during the Second Shinobi War had he been so outclassed by someone else. Whenever he attacked, Naruto would just teleport away to one of the nearby Kunao, making it incredibly difficult to land a blow on him. The Otokage had heard that when that accursed brat, Namikaze Minato, had fought the Raikage in the Hakusabijin hierarchy years ago, he had been able to dodge the Raikage's fastest punch and was regarded as the fastest man who ever lived. Now there seemed to be another. A Senju with the Mokuton bloodline who had mastered the Minato's Hiraishin no Jutsu had appeared out of nowhere and challenged him. Whoever he was certainly living up to the legend that Senju Hashirama had left behind after he departed from this world, if this man's strength was any indication. "Are you finished?" Naruto asked, seemingly unimpressed, and he really was. He'd come into this fight expecting better of a Sunin that was supposed to be on par with Senjutsunade, but this was pathetic. For the supposed genius of the Sunin, the snake summoner just wasn't able to keep up with someone like him. Honestly, if it weren't for the freakish regeneration ability of his to shed his skin, then Naruto would have already killed him long ago. "Do not look at me with those eyes," Orochimaru sneered back as his legs came together and became a snake-like tail. He disappeared in a burst of speed, slithering his way around destroyed trees before leaping at Naruto, the Kusanagi no Tsurugi appearing from his mouth ready to stab his opponent. He hated eyes like that. As a genius hailed as one of the greatest shinobi of his generation, he'd always received either looks of respect and pride while growing up. Now he received both fear and hatred, though he didn't care about that last one because he always found amusement in the fact that those who hated him simply couldn't even touch his greatness. This man, though, his eyes were much like that accursed Itachi's, only worse. Itachi always looked at him with disinterest like many others, however this man looked at him as if he was nothing to him. He idly wondered if this was how Kakuzu had felt when he had confronted Senju Hashirama decades ago, assuming that this man was actually telling the truth and was indeed the second Kami no Shinobi. Too slow, Naruto thought as the sword came and impaled him through the chest. "Die!" Orochimaru shouted with a glare only for his eyes to widen when the man he had just stabbed turned into wood and broke into pieces. A wood clone, he thought in surprise. When did he switch? "Mokuton, Kajukai Korin," Naruto's voice echoed as a massive plant sprouted up from the ground. Gas blew out from it, covering the area in a fog and forcing the Otokage to restore his legs and jump away. "Futon, de Tapa!" Orochimaru exclaimed as a gust of wind blew the gas away, allowing him to flee the area. "Mandara no Jin," he said as he dropped to the ground once he was far enough away and spewed hundreds of snakes from his mouth at the pursuing masked blonde. Not good enough, Naruto thought as he gazed upon the attacking wall of snakes and formed a hand seal. "Mokuton, Makuryu no Jutsu," he spoke clearly as a massive wooden dragon shot out of the ground behind him and turned. He jumped up onto the head of the wood dragon as it descended upon the snakes and tore into them, slaughtering them in a matter of seconds. "I've had enough of this game of cat and mouse, snake. You." Orochimaru glared before forming a series of hand seals and then slamming his hands down on the ground. "Kukiyos, Sunja Rashomon," he called out as seals spread across the ground and 3 massive Rashomon gates appeared in bursts of smoke. "That should hold him. That looks like Hashirama-sensei's jutsu, though only 3 of the gates appeared," Naruto thought at the sight before him. "Senjutsu, Senin Moto," Naruto spoke calmly as natural energy was drawn into his body. Dark rings appeared around his eyes as they turned yellow, markings stretched spread across his face, and a dark circle appeared on his forehead a second later, though they was hidden behind his mask. "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," he whispered as a pair of shadow clones popped into existence at his side. "Is that it? Can't be. He's using Senjutsu." Orochimaru thought in fear as a bell-like screech filled the air. The 2 clones he'd just created pulled back as Naruto held his newly formed chakra shuriken in his hand and narrowed his eyes as the 3 large demonic gates. "Futon, Raisin Shuriken," he exclaimed as he hurled the chakra shuriken at them. It cut straight through all 3 gates before expanding into a rotating sphere of destruction that shredded the last gate and forced Orochimaru to jump back. Such power! Orochimaru thought with no small amount of worry. It had cut through all 3 Rashomon gates like they were made of paper before detonating with enough destructive capability to completely destroy one. "I can't afford to hold anything back," he reasoned as his form convulsed before growing upwards. "Yamata no Jutsu," he called out as he took the form of a massive giant demonic snake with 8 heads. For the first time since the fight had started, Naruto was impressed. The only thing he could compare it to would be either a Biju or that jutsu Hashirama was capable of in his prime. While in Sage mode, Naruto could feel the chakra signatures of others in a similar way to Karin's sensory ability. However, when he coupled that with his negative emotion sensing, he was damn near all-knowing of everything within his range. Right now he couldn't feel anything from this monstrosity in front of him other than a haze coupled with dark and foul chakra twisted beyond recognition. It didn't even feel alive. From what I understand, Orochimaru is obsessed with immortality, Naruto thought as he stared at the monstrous creature before him. Could this be the result of his experimentation on himself? Die. Orochimaru snarled as all 8 heads came together and started channeling beams of pitch-black chakra from its mouths into a purple sphere in front of it. That looks like the Bijudama, Naruto mused at the sight. No doubt he thought of the idea for this jutsu after seeing a Biju in action. He watched as the beam ball compressed and then fired at him as a small golden beam of light. Hiraishin no jutsu, he muttered as he flashed away just as the beam struck the place where he'd been standing a moment ago and exploded in a torrent of flames. Kukyukyuku. Are you dead yet? You cannot defeat me, mortal. Orochimaru chuckled darkly only to freeze as another bell-like screech filled the air. What? He yelled as he looked up and saw a 4-pointed shuriken shape parting the sky itself. Naruto descended from its center holding another chakra shuriken which he quickly threw down at the giant 8-headed snake. Futon, Raisin Shuriken, he called out as it cut through one of its heads and then expanded, engulfing the creature in a ball of wind and power that quickly tore it to shreds. Regenerate from that, he spoke as he landed. It's over. It's not over yet. Orochimaru yelled as he emerged from the ground in the form of a giant snake with a twisted version of his face. Fushi Tensei, he dived right at Naruto, engulfed his body whole in one swift motion. Naruto's mindscape, Jinhiriki seal. The first thing Orochimaru noticed was the fact that he was pinned to a wall by wooden stakes in front of a large cage. This hadn't happened before. What was going on? Where were the tormented souls of those that had already given their lives for the glory of prolonging his own? You know, I may have been nicer on the outside, but truthfully I'm not in the mood to be all that merciful to you, Naruto said as he appeared from the shadows and stood between the cage door and him. This isn't possible, Orochimaru glared at the blonde. You tried to take my body, Naruto responded. And now I'll take your life. He turned and walked away as red liquid oozed out from under the cage door. What? Orochimaru asked in surprise and growing fear as 2 red eyes and a terrifyingly white smile appeared in the darkness behind the cage door. Wait. You can't do this to me, he shouted at the masked blonde. That's... He trailed off as he saw what looked like a massive demonic fox with 9 tails inside the cage. The Kyuubi, but, you can't be, the Kyuubi brat died 9 years ago. Goodbye Orochimaru, Naruto whispered as he kept walking until he was out of sight. You can't do this to me. I am immortal. Orochimaru screamed as the red liquid rose up and consumed his body. His screams didn't last long. Land of Sound, Battlefield. Yakushi Kabuto was the best spy in the elemental nations for the simple fact that he was the best liar in the known world. The man had grown up as a nobody and had accepted his role as the right-hand man of one of the most dangerous men alive. Now though things had changed, they had come out of nowhere and utterly decimated everything and everyone in their wake. He'd tried to find Orochimaru-sama, however by the time he arrived all he could see was the large white snake that used to be Orochimaru now scattered in chunks all over the area and a single figure standing in the center of the destruction. Kabuto gulped as the masked figure turned to him and simply walked past him, not even sparing him a glance. He turned his attention to the remains of his former master and couldn't help but feel lost. After so long serving the man, he had no idea what to do with his life beyond that. Perhaps it was time for the servant to become the master. Naruto arrived at the rendezvous site where his teammates were waiting and noticed that though Hinata and Haku seemed to have a few scratches on them, they were unharmed. Karen looked up as he approached and he nodded to her. Orochimaru is dead, Naruto declared. It's time we stepped out of the shadows and finally brought peace to this cursed world. It's begun, Karen proclaimed. The 18-year-old Sarutobi Kano Amaru, grandson of the Sandaime Hokage and the 4th Jinhiriki of the Ichibai no Tanuki, was considered by many to be a genius. By the age of 12 the young man had mastered several high-level ninjutsu and despite being a genin at the time, he was arguably far stronger than others his age. Now at age 18 he had reached the rank of Jonin and had been reassigned back to his spot on Team Kakashi. 9 years ago, his first sensei and brother figure, Uzumaki Naruto, had been killed in action, taking the legendary Kyuubi no Yoko with him in death. Initially he'd been both angry and scared, blaming those that were now his teammates for his Enai-san's death, but he'd moved on since then and forgiven them after find out all of the details of that day. Since the Ichibai attack 8 years ago and its subsequent sealing within his body by his grandfather to protect Konoha, he'd been training constantly in order to gain better control of its power. However, it was a slow process since the seal that had been used to imprison the sand demon was the Shiki Fujin, the strongest Fuinjutsu in the known world. The seal allowed some of the Ichibai's chakra to leak into his chakra core, greatly increasing his chakra reserves at an alarming rate. However, that was all it did. Unlike the current Kaze Kage, Sabaku no Gaara, who used to be the Ichibai Jinhiriki before him, his seal was actually far more powerful and restrictive to the demon within than the one Gaara used to have. Gaara's seal was almost non-existent, allowing the Ichibai Shukaku to exert a rather disturbing amount of torture on his Jinhiriki. This resulted in nightmares, whispers of killing, and even going as far as to take direct control of Gaara's body whenever he fell asleep. On the positive side, it also granted him the ability to control sand to a degree only rivaled by Senjuto Bairama's control over water. He also gained an automatic defense in the form of a sand barrier controlled by Shukaku that would constantly be thrown up whenever his Jinhiriki and by proxy himself was attacked. Kano Amaru's seal, on the other hand, restricted Shukaku from doing any of those things. The young Sarutobi had been glad that he wouldn't have to stay awake forever and constantly have the sand demon talking in his head all the time. However, he did find it annoying that he wouldn't be able to control sand like Gaara was capable of. It would certainly be useful, especially considering Gaara was regarded as the strongest Kaze Kage of them all because of his talent. In regards to Konoha, the village he was named after, the civilians hated him and the ninja hated the Ichibai within him. He had their respect as a shinobi, and as the grandson of the Sandaime Hokage he was acknowledged by the villagers. However, his relations with those outside of his team were strained. Only his teammates, the Godaime Hokage, Tenzo, and the strange Hyuga girl, Hanabi, who kept following him around when not on missions, ever treated him like a normal person. Thankfully, Jiraiya-sama had taken to training him, even going so far as to allow him to sign the Toad summoning contract. He knew the Toads were one of the 3 most powerful summons in existence because they could do some strange jutsu that he hadn't heard of before, and it made them ridiculously strong. He couldn't wait to learn that. "Is it just me or is it hot out here?" Sakura asked. "Of course it's not you," Kano Amaru replied without thinking. "We're almost to the desert, so of course it's going to get hotter." Sadly, the only words the pinkette caught were "not you" and "get hotter," so naturally she took it the wrong way. The punch came out of nowhere, smacking the teenage Sarutobi across the jaw, sending him crashing into a nearby tree. Though her chakra control was perfect and her reserves were larger than they were years ago, she just couldn't duplicate the legendary physical strength of Senjutsu-nade. In another life, that single punch would have damn near killed Kano Amaru. However, that was not the case here, since she'd been reassigned from her previous posting on Team Kurane. After being placed under the command of Yui Kurane at the age of 13, she'd been taught many a genjutsu and had even dabbed into a bit of medical ninjutsu. Because of this, she had quickly rose to the rank of Chunin at the age of 14 and had remained there ever since, opting not to take the Jonin exams until she felt that she was ready. She'd come a long way from her genin days as a useless fangirl. "Idiot," Sakura gritted in annoyance. "I swear he's almost as bad as Naruto was." What did I say?" Kano Amaru asked as he pulled himself together. "HN," was Suzuki's response. "You're all a barrel of laughs," a familiar voice said in amusement from behind them. "That's Kakashi," thought as he turned swiftly. "Hashiga Kiki same," it was indeed the blue-skinned swordsman. "But that means dash." "Hello Suzuki," a calm voice spoke up, catching their attention. "Itake." Suzuki trailed off as his older brother stepped out from behind a nearby tree. "It wasn't easy finding you, Ichibai," Kisame commented. "But you see, my blade Same Hada just loves powerful chakra. It was rather persistent in tracking down you. Very tasty scent. I'm afraid you're going to have to become food for Same Hada now. Don't worry though, we won't kill you." "Surrender the Ichibai," Itake demanded calmly. "We only need the Jinhiriki alive, the rest of you can disappear." "Kakashi," Suzuki spoke over his shoulder as he kept his eyes on his older brother. "I'll handle Itake." "Suzuki," Kakashi warned. "I'm the only one who can fight him," Suzuki reasoned. "All right," Kakashi nodded. "Sakura, Kano Amaru, you two come with me," he ordered, and then jumped up into the trees with the other two following close behind. "Kisame, go after them," Itake ordered. "Do not let the Ichibai escape." "Sure," Kisame said with a grin as he took off after the fleeing Konohanins. "Now Suzuki." Itake trailed off as he locked eyes with his brother. "Your eyes have matured enough, I will enjoy taking them for myself and awaken the eternal Mangekyo Sharinon. If you want my eyes, Suzuki countered. Then come and claim them. Their Sharinon shifted into their respective Mangekyo forms and they both whispered the word. Tsukuyomi. Kano Amaru, we'll attack him together, Kakashi spoke as they jumped from tree to tree. Sakura, hang back for now, we might need you in a minute. Yes, sensei, Sakura nodded in reply. Now. Kakashi shouted as he landed on the branch of a tree and immediately turned around. He launched himself back at the pursuing Kisame even as Kano Amaru followed, a shuriken in his hand. His jump was slightly to the side as he threw the small projectile, his hands rapidly forming seals. Reikari, the gray-haired former Umbu captain exclaimed as lightning encased his fist and he thrust it out at the Kiri Nukanen. Not bad, Kisame commented as he blocked with same hata. The lightning died immediately and the chakra behind it almost seemed to be pulled into the now giggling sword. But ninjutsu is useless against someone like me, he laughed as he pulled back the blade, shaving some of the skin off of the Kopinen's palm. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Kano Amaru called out as the shuriken he had thrown at Kisame suddenly became 20 forcing him to pull back. You're not getting away, the teenage Sarutobi shouted as he formed another set of hand seals and took a deep breath. Katon, Hi's Kisho. He exhaled a cloud of black powder from his mouth which engulfed the fleeing swordsman. The powder burst into flames a moment later in a fiery blaze even as Kano Amaru formed another hand seal. This kid is pretty good, Kisame mused as the flames were absorbed by same hata. But not good enough, he laughed as he felt his sentient sword start to merge into his back. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Kano Amaru muttered and a single shadow clone appeared at his side. Raise non, he exclaimed as he lunged at Kisame with a spinning chakra ball in hand. I need to thank Kakashi-sensei for teaching me this jutsu, he thought as he closed in only for him to suddenly and violently be blown back by a massive blast of water. What the dash, Kano Amaru stammered in surprise as the water washed over the area, engulfing him and his teammates. A Suten jutsu on this scale is... Kakashi trailed off in thought at the sight. Suten, Dai Bakuzu Ishiha. Kisame laughed as the water took the shape of a massive dome. He appeared in front them, swimming through the water and though their vision was obscured they were able to make out his new appearance. Is that, Kisame? Kakashi thought in surprise. The swordsman was no longer holding his sword and had seemed to have transformed into a human-sized blue shark with fins and gills. His chakra has merged with that of his sword, could he have bonded directly with it? He really is a monster. Sakura thought at the sight. Die. Kisame yelled through the water as he rapidly closed in on his prey. I have no choice, Kakashi mused darkly and formed a hand seal. His left eye the Sharinon changed and shifted into its Mangekyo form much to Kisame's surprise. Kamui, he whispered into the water as time and space distorted in the center of the dome. What the dash, Kisame stammered in surprise the water was pulled in forcing him to flee the dome. This bought enough time for Kakashi, Sakura, and Kano Amaru to escape also. That was Ataka's level of Jujutsu, the monster shark mused as same hata detached itself from his body and he returned to human form. Are you alright, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked worriedly. I'm fine, Sakura, Kakashi replied though sweat was now pouring down his forehead. I can't use that jutsu all the time, he mused calmly. The key to his strength seems to be his sword, if I take that out then Kano Amaru should be able to finish the job. You little punks, Kisame grinned as he brought same hata to his side and charged forward. Kamui, Kakashi whispered as he focused on the arguably sentient sword. Space and time distorted as the sword was pulled into the artificial vortex he created at its handle. The fuck dash Kisame yelped in surprise as he was forced to drop his prized sword. A second later, the blade vanished along with the rupture in space-time that had formed leaving him without a weapon, greatly angering him. You son of bitch, he yelled as he formed a series of hand seals. Kakashi-sensei. Sakura screamed in worry as Kakashi fell face first onto the ground. She rushed over to him and quickly checked him over. He's used up a lot of chakra, she thought before throwing his arm over her shoulder and pulling him up. Get out of here. I'll hold him off. Kano Amaru shouted to his pink-haired teammate over his shoulder. But Dash Sakura started. Go. Kano Amaru shouted again. Damn it, Sakura thought before she turned around and jumped back into the trees with an unconscious Kakashi slung over her shoulder. Suten, Daikodan no Jutsu. Kisame bellowed as a huge water shark formed behind him and then descended upon the teenage Sarutobi. Kano Amaru cursed in thought as the water shark struck down on him with an echoing splash. Silence soon followed as the water level receded, and Kisame watched with great satisfaction when the lifeless form of the Ichibaijin Hiraki floated face down in the water. The annoying little shit was weak after all. This brat cost me same Hada, so I'll enjoy watching as the demon is ripped from his body. Not too far away, Kano Amaru landed on a tree branch and looked back at the battlefield. I hope my shadow clone fooled him, he thought before dropping down to the ground below. Even I was almost unable to catch that last move of yours, spoke a familiar monotone voice from behind him. Shit, Kano Amaru cursed as he quickly turned to see the infamous Uchiha Itaka standing not too far away. What are you doing here? What happened to Sasuke? I am merely a clone, Itaka told him before he burst into dozens of black crows. Genjutsu, Kano Amaru thought as he formed a hand seal. A pulse of chakra shattered the illusion, however the crows still remained, much to his surprise and mounting worry. It was common knowledge that Itaka was a master of genjutsu that was said to be unrivaled in that particular field and could cast his illusions with a single glance. I didn't confront you so we could fight, Itaka explained as his upper body reformed from several crows. I came to give you something, he continued as one of his crows suddenly dived right into Kano Amaru's mouth. What did you just do to me? Kano Amaru rasped out, trying not to puke. Just something that may be needed in the near future, Itaka replied before he burst into crows again and flew away. We will not meet again. What the hell was that about? Kano Amaru thought as he felt the genjutsu finally break. I'll worry about it later, for now I need to catch up with the others. Sakura. Kakashi rasped out as he regained consciousness. What happened? You passed out after using some kind of jutsu, Sakura replied in relief as they stopped in a clearing. You had me scared there for a moment. I'm fine though, I will probably be bedridden for a while after this, Kakashi reasoned. It seems I've been neglecting my chakra control if using Kamui twice can drain me so much, he added in thought. Where are Kano Amaru and Sasuke? He stayed behind, Sakura stammered out with tears falling freely down her face. Actually I'm right here, Kano Amaru answered as he stepped out from behind a tree. But thanks for caring, he added with a wide smile. But that's not dash, Sakura stuttered in response. I made a shadow clone and pumped it full of Shukaku's chakra. I pulled a switch and then escaped. Judging by the fact that they haven't dispelled it yet, I'd say they bought it, Kano Amaru explained. It's probably best if I don't mention Itaka for now. And Sasuke? Kakashi inquired. I haven't seen him, Kano Amaru replied grimly. I see, Kakashi nodded before standing back on his own 2 feet. I'll go back and look for him. I want you two to head for Suna right now and don't stop running until you get there. There's always a chance that Kisame will discover your clone is a fake and then come after you again. The same trick won't work twice either, so our best bet right now is to get you as far away from him as possible. We can't just leave you and Sasuke-kun, Sakura spoke up. I'm giving you two a direct order, Kakashi told them. Get going, now. Those who disobey orders are trash, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash, Kano Amaru said after a moment of silence. How can you expect us to follow that order knowing that we'd be leaving you to die out here? Have some faith, Kakashi responded. I've lost one student already because of my negligence and I won't lose another. You two head for Suna, Sasuke and I will catch up later. I'll hold you to that, Kakashi-sensei, Kano Amaru nodded before turning away. Come on Sakura, he said to the pinkette. But Sasuke-kun is still dash, Sakura started. He'll be fine, Kano Amaru reassured her. If there's one thing I've learned since I joined this team, it's that the Uchiha team just refuses to die. He'd been put under the Genjutsu Tsukuyomi before, however, this time it was different and far more dangerous. This time he wasn't some kid who had recently awoken the Mangekyo Sharingan, this time he was able to cast the exact same Genjutsu on Itaka the moment he was attacked, thus putting them on equal footing so to speak. However, this also caused their Genjutsu and more importantly, their minds to link in order to create this artificial world that they had found themselves in. The sky was blood red and the world around them was pitched black, giving the appearance of a horrific world. This wasn't like his first experience with this jutsu because unlike last time this world seemed to reflect both their minds instead of merely a world of Itaka's make. The sky was bleeding. He didn't pay attention to the bloody rain that started to pour down on him when he spotted Itaka standing not too far away. The older of the two Uchiha seemed unconcerned at the state of the world they had found themselves in and turned to face his younger brother. Both of their main Jikyoshirinon were crying tears of blood now as a symbol of both their pain. Enough, Suzuki said finally as the world around them started to fracture. I've had enough of your illusions. The world around them shattered and they found themselves back in the forest where they began. Let's settle this once and for all. Very well, Itaki responded in monotone as he quickly formed a hand seal. Katon, Kukakyu no Jutsu. A moment later he exhaled a rather large fireball at the younger Uchiha. Katon, Kukakyu no Jutsu. Suzuki countered with the same jutsu. The two fireballs met in a blaze, one trying to overpower the other until it quickly became clear that they had reached a stalemate. Amaterasu, they both whispered as black flames were added to the inferno. You've come a long way, Suzuki, Itaki mused in approval as the two were forced apart or risked getting caught by the unquenchable flames. This should be enough, Suzuki thought upon seeing the firestorm the two Uchiha brothers had created in this personal war of theirs. Katon, Goryuka no Jutsu, he exclaimed as a pair of orange fire dragons exploded from his mouth at the darkening sky. What is he doing? Itaki asked in thought at his brother's actions. He just used up a large amount of chakra to do that, but I don't understand what he wishes to accomplish. This is the end, Suzuki declared as darkened clouds formed above them with lightning lancing down at the ground. Be gone with the sound of a thunderclap, Kirin, he called out as lightning struck down upon Itaki's position in the shape of a dragon-like beast. That's natural lightning, Itaki realized as the attack descended upon him. Susanoo, he whispered just as it hit, causing a massive blast that reduced everything within a half a mile into dust. That's... Suzuki trailed off as the attack died down and the clouds started to clear. Itaki stood unharmed though blood was now dripping from his mouth and he appeared to be sweating from overexertion. However, what caught the younger brother's attention was the massive red ethereal god resembling a Yamabushi that now encased his form, wielding a sword, a shield, and a jar in its three hands. So you really do have that jutsu after all. This is the third jutsu granted by main Jikyoshirinon requiring the usage of both eyes, Itaki explained. You should feel honored to see it in its full glory, little brother. Well, if that's how you want to play then fine, Suzuki glared back as purple chakra exploded from his form and created a large armored humanoid figure with three hands similar to the one Itaki had formed, only instead it held a bow, an arrow, and an orb. Susanoo, Suzuki proclaimed as he loaded an arrow into the bow. Incredible, Itaki commented. You also became able to use this jutsu. My hatred has made me strong, Suzuki spoke with a glare. Die Itaki, he shouted as he fired the loaded arrow. Itaki brought his shield up, deflecting the arrow with an echoing bang and then swiped at Suzuki across from the side in a wide arc. Suzuki jumped back to evade the sword as he quickly loaded another arrow and fired, this time at the head of Itaki's guardian deity. It struck true and tore right through it, breaking its head like glass only for it to reform a moment later. That's not enough, little brother, Itaki spoke, though it was clear that they were both tiring. They both knew that this was a battle of attrition now, with the winner being the one with the greater stamina. It was only a matter of time before one of them would run out of steam and then it would all be over. Itaki quickly renewed his attack and impaled Suzuki's spirit warrior through the chest, cutting right through its armor. The sword and shield that Itaki wielded, though, were the legendary Totsuka no Tsurugi and Yaden no Kagami, known for being the ultimate sealing blade and unbreakable shield of the Uchiha clan. Suzuki was surprised when his Susanoo was pulled into Itaki's sake jar and forced to jump back. When he landed, he quickly reformed his Susanoo as Itaki slowly made his way towards him. Damn it, Suzuki cursed as he felt his newly formed Susanoo dissipate. I'm out of chakra, he realized as he strained to keep himself standing. This is the end, Suzuki, Itaki breathed as his own Susanoo faded away. He lifted his hand towards Suzuki's face and shakily walked towards his younger brother. My light, give me my light. He trailed off before finally standing in front of his brother. Sorry, Suzuki, maybe another time. His body finally gave out and he fell to the side, staring face up at the sky, his eyes now devoid of life. Suzuki simply stared in shock before he too succumbed to exhaustion and fell to the ground. A second later, a figure resembling a Venus flytrap emerged from the ground in a man wearing an orange spiral mask with a single eye hole warped into existence nearby. Did you record everything? Obito asked his partner as he gazed down at the Uchiha brothers. Oh yeah, we got everything all right, White Zetsu replied. It was entertaining, Black Zetsu added. Oh Itaki, Obito thought as he looked down at the now deceased man. You underestimate me. He could only suppress the feeling of dread that had built up when he saw the lightning strike in the distance, having already realized exactly what it was. Sasuke had developed that jutsu specifically to use against Itachi, and even he had to admit it was quite impressive. The fact that Sasuke had used it meant that he wasn't holding anything back and would most likely require backup as soon as possible. This was Uchiha Itachi they were dealing with after all, and despite his reputation as a mass-murdering psychopath, he was still recognized as one of the greatest shinobi that Konoha ever produced. "Please don't let me be late," Kakashi pleaded in thought as he jumped out of the trees and onto the battlefield. There was no one there. Damn it, Kakashi thought as he clenched his fists. I failed again. Kisame grumbled in annoyance as he deposited as he entered the small base they had set up in the northern part of the Land of Winds. They'd originally constructed this base to launch a raid against Suna, but due to them losing the Ichibai to Konoha, they had all but abandoned using it until now. As he entered with the unconscious Kano Amaru slung over his shoulder, he spotted the 7 holographic figures of the other members of the Akatsuki. "You're late," Pain commented. "I have already been informed that Itachi has perished in battle with his younger brother, so this will take longer than normal." The Jinhyuriki had some pretty strong allies, Kisame explained as he set Kano Amaru down on the floor. "I even lost Same Hada because of that bastard. Hey, take Kakashi. Let's begin," Pain declared as a massive demonic statue exploded from the ground before them. "From this point on it will take 3 days and nights to complete. Everyone also be mindful of your real bodies, okay? Now Zetsu. Use your real body as a lookout and use your longest range. This'll be our 7th one, HN." Deidara mused as they all formed a hand seal. "Fuinjutsu, Genryu Kyafujin." Pain exclaimed as 9 spiritual dragons appeared from the statue's mouth and consumed Kano Amaru's body. The teenage Sarutobi was lifted into the air, his eyes and mouth open in a silent scream as red chakra was ripped out of his body and pulled into the statue in a steady stream. "Without Itachi this will take longer than normal," Kakuzu commented. "Something is wrong," Konan spoke up just before Kano Amaru disappeared in a poof of smoke. "A shadow clone?" she asked in surprise. "Heh, it looks like the Ichibai Jinhyuriki pulled the wool over your eyes," Deidara said, almost amused. "That accursed brat," Kisame seethed in anger at the thought. Darkness, he couldn't see, but the pain, it meant he was alive. What had happened? "The last thing I remember is, Itachi," Sasuke thought as he brought his hand up to his face. "My eyes." He trailed off as he felt bandages wrapped around his head, covering his eyes. "Where am I?" "So you're awake, huh?" a dark voice asked from the shadows. "You were able to defeat Itachi, though that is hardly surprising considering he wanted to die at your hand." Who are you?" Sasuke questioned. "What are you talking about?" "I am Uchiha Madara," the voice declared. "Also, I took the liberty of transplanting Itachi's eyes into you, a good thing too because you were already blind when I brought you here." "Madara?" Sasuke asked, confused. "He's dead, you can't be him." "Believe what you want," Madara shrugged as he stepped out of the shadows. "But you shouldn't dismiss something out of hand without knowing all the facts, just like Itachi." "What do you know of Itachi?" Sasuke questioned further. "Let me tell you the truth about Itachi and the Uchiha clan. After all, I was the one who helped in the massacre," Obito declared. "You helped him?" Sasuke snarled in anger at the fact. "I'll kill you." "It's not me you should kill," Obito reasoned. "I helped him because the Uchiha betrayed me long ago, but for Itachi, he was under orders to wipe out the Uchiha clan." "Orders? Orders from whom?" Sasuke demanded. "Konoha, of course. Land of Fire, Konoha/Hokage Tower." Jiraiya sat in his chair with a grim expression as Kakashi explained the details of their latest run-in with the Akatsuki and couldn't help but wince when he'd heard that the last loyal Uchiha of Konoha had been declared as missing in action and presumed dead. It was clear that the Uchiha brothers had fought each other and had most likely struck each other down, Sasuke's Kirin having most likely destroyed their bodies, making recovery impossible since even Kakashi's summoned dogs couldn't smell their scents leaving the area. In other words, it was a total clusterfuck. "I see," Jiraiya said finally. "I'm sorry for your loss." His words were directed at the pink head of the team that was barely stopping herself from crying and falling apart. She'd just lost the man she loved after knowing him for the better part of 13 years, 9 of which she had been placed on his team, so it was no surprise that she was emotional right now. Kakashi spoke up. "I'll take care of the arrangements to have his name engraved on the memorial stone alongside Naruto's." Kakashi, Sakura, You two are dismissed, Jiraiya told them, and they nodded before leaving. Hokage-sama? Kano Amaru asked. Unlike the others, he had never really gotten along with Sasuke and wasn't as affected by the Uchiha's death as they were, but even he didn't think that the man deserved to die. Did you want something? In light of this latest development, I'm going to have you undergo personal training with the Toads, Jiraiya told him. I've seen the stuff that Sasuke could throw around, and if someone even Itachi could take him down, then it's clear that their leader must be a monster of a man even by my standards, so you'll need to be ready. Training? Kano Amaru inquired, confused. I've been training for 6 years, Hokage-sama. I don't think any sort of last-minute training is going to help me deal with these kinds of assholes. It will, Jiraiya replied knowingly. Pack your things because you leave in an hour. Land of Wind, Akatsuki Base. It couldn't be true, it just couldn't. Not after everything that had happened. Itachi couldn't have willingly betrayed the Uchiha clan, his own family, to Konoha. But as he remembered Itachi's tears from that night so long ago, he knew it was true and screamed in anguish for his brother's death and his family's suffering. The Kyuubi had attacked Konoha, and the Uchiha clan had been ostracized for possibly controlling the rampaging demon. They had planned to rebel against the Hokage and the village elders, who had kept close tabs on them ever since, even going as far as to make Itachi a double agent. When a civil war was about to erupt, possibly leading to a fourth great shinobi war, the Sandaime Hokage and the elders had ordered Itachi to wipe out the entire clan. Itachi had bargained for his younger brother's life and had become known as an infamous criminal who would eventually be struck down by Sasuke in order to restore the honor of the Uchiha clan. All the while, the Sandaime Hokage and the elders let Itachi take the blame for their actions in protecting the innocent village. It was disgusting. What will you do now? Obito asked as he gazed down at younger Uchiha. I will destroy Konoha for what they have done to my clan and my brother, Sasuke declared. You can't do that in your present condition, Obito countered. It will take you time to get adjusting to your new eyes, and I know just how you can master them. How? Sasuke asked him. Kisame, Obito spoke up, and the blue-skinned swordsman stepped out of the shadows. Try not to lose this again, he said as he handed Samehada over to the Kiri-Nukanin. Of course, Mizukage-sama, Kisame grinned back as he hefted the blade. Now Sasuke, I want you and Kisame to go to the Land of Lightning. You should be able to locate and capture the Hakubi Jinhiriki. By the time you're done, you should have full control of your new eyes, Obito explained. So be it, Sasuke agreed. Land of Rain, AIM/Akatsuki headquarters. Pain's Deva Path stood in the center of the darkened room, gazing upon the Gadamazo that housed 6 of the Biju. Madara had said that Kisame and his new apprentice, Uchiha Sasuke, would capture the Hakubi from Kumo, leaving only one other target for him to collect. The Ichibai belonged to Konoha, so the older Uchiha had thought that Pain would like a shot at taking down Konoha while he was hunting the Ichibai. But he knew that Konoha wasn't a village to be underestimated. After all, they had stood as the strongest of the shinobi villages since the founding era. It also had a habit of producing monster-like shinobi such as Jiraiya-sensei and Namikaze Minato, the latter of which was someone whom even Pain admitted was quite skilled. The fact that the Ichibai Jinhiriki had duped Kisame into capturing a shadow clone instead of the real one was testament to that fact. Pain, Konan spoke up as she entered the room. Are they assembled? Pain inquired. Deidara and Sasori just arrived. They're the last other than Kisame, Sasuke, and Madara. They're ready to leave when you give the okay, Konan replied. An assault against Konoha will not be easy, Pain mused. Only the full might of the Akatsuki and God will be enough to bring down a village run by Jiraiya-sensei. Nagato. Konan trailed off. Peace is almost here, Pain declared. It is time. I will wait with the others, Konan nodded and turned to leave. Wait, Pain spoke up suddenly. Nagato. Konan asked as she looked back at him. Someone has disturbed my rain's fall, Pain said with narrowed eyes. And judging by their chakra, it's someone dangerous. Thanks for the lift, Takamaru, Naruto said as he and Karen dropped down into the empty alleyway. It was raining heavily, but what else could you expect from a village hidden in the rain? Never ask me to fly in this country again, Takamaru shot back. And make sure to get more snacks, he added before disappearing in a poof of smoke. Grouchy much? Naruto muttered. We should hurry, Karen spoke up. We've probably already been detected. She jumped high into the air with Naruto's arms wrapped around her, overlooking the village hidden in the rain. Tendo, Shinra Tensei, she exclaimed as a sphere of compressed gravity formed around her before expanding outwards in a massive wave that flattened everything it touched. A borderline great shinobi village reduced to crater in a single attack. There were simply no words to describe it. "Karen," Naruto spoke finally. "Are you alright?" "I seem to have overused my Deva path," Karen commented as they landed next to Blonde in the middle of the crater. "Chikushodo, Kukiyos no Jutsu," the red-headed woman whispered as she slapped her hand down on the ground. "Nagato!" Konan screamed as she looked around at the devastation around her. One moment she'd been talking to Pain's Deva Path Yahiko's corpse and the next the entire village had been wiped out. She didn't know what happened after that but had quickly gotten her bearings in that now ruined Omegakuer no Sato. Even Pain's tower had been leveled but she knew he couldn't be dead, not after everything they had been through. "I'm here, Konan," Nagato the real Pain spoke up as he landed at her side. He was riding on the back of his summoned bird since his legs were severely burned earlier in his life, resorting him to rely on a mechanical chair to get him around and his 6 paths to fight his battles for him since his body was crippled after he had first used the power of the Gadomazo. "Chikushodo, Kukiyos no Jutsu," he whispered as he formed a hand seal. All 6 paths of pain appeared at his side in clouds of smoke as he turned his attention towards the direction of the intruders. "Who could have done this?" Konan asked as she stared out at the sight before them. "Whoever they are, they will pay," Nagato declared as his 6 paths launched themselves towards the interlopers. "That was a full-powered gravity blast like those used by my Deva path." "I'm going to," Konan spoke up before her body burst into dozens of paper butterflies and flew off. "What the fuck was that?" Deidara shouted in surprise as he and the other members of the Akatsuki stood at the edge of the newly formed crater. "That was not art. I don't know what kind of jutsu that was," Kakuzu mused. "But I think the ones who did it are down there," he said as he gestured towards the center of the crater. "There is Leader Sama," Sasori informed them upon seeing 7 figures jump down into the crater including both Deva and Konan. "This should be fun," Haiden grinned. "Jashin Sama will be praised." "They're coming," Hinata reported with her Byakugan active. She along with Haku, Tsunade, and Anoka had been summoned by Karen with her animal path upon destroying AIM so that they weren't caught in the initial attack on the reigning village. "This is their house," Naruto quipped. "I guess they're pissed that we brought the party to their doorstep, huh?" "The Akatsuki are not to be underestimated," Menma-sama, Anoka told him. "They have already succeeded in capturing 6 of the Biju, something no one has done since the founding era." "Haku," Karen spoke up with narrowed eyes. "You're up." "Hayaton, Yukihana no Jutsu," Haku exclaimed as an ice flower formed from the gathered rainwater in front of them and sprouted upwards to intercept the attacking Akatsuki members. "Hayaton?" Deva questioned at the sight. "Shinra Tensei," he called out as gravity compressed in front of him, shattering the ice flower. "I see, a member of the cursed Yuki clan of Kirigakuer no Sato." That was. Karen thought upon seeing the unique jutsu as the 6 paths of pain and Konan landed in front of them. "Hey, aren't those eyes?" Naruto trailed off as he stared at the Akatsuki leader. "The Rinnegan," Karen nodded. "You have these godly eyes too," Pain mused as his attention was drawn to the youngest of the Uzumaki women present. "I should have expected as much when I saw you destroy my village with a gravity wave." "That face," Tsunade commented as she focused on the Deva path of pain. "You used to be one of Jiraiya's old students, I remember you." "Tsunade, one of the Sunin that were defeated by Hanzo back during the Second Shinobi War," Pain spoke knowingly. "You're supposed to be an old drunk wallowing in the misery of losing her loved ones. Do you understand pain?" "Pain huh?" Tsunade scoffed. "Jiraiya mentioned that one of you 3 brats had the Rinnegan but I thought he was joking at the time." "Rightin', Jian." A bolt of lightning descended from the sky as Kakuzu landed on the ground with his 4 webbed bodies at his side. "Mokyuton, Mokyajoki," Naruto spoke clearly as wood erupted from the ground around them, forming half a dome between the Yuki and Akatsuki ninja. "Lightning isn't a good element to use against wood," the masked blonde commented as Kakuzu's lightning attack struck to the wooden dome to no effect. That was the Shodei Hokage Smokyuton, Pain thought at the sight. Another member of the Senju clan perhaps. "You will all be sacrificed for the glory of Jashin-sama," Haiden shouted in glee as he dropped down behind the Yuki ninja. He was rewarded for his enthusiasm with a punch to the face courtesy of Tsunade which cleanly took off his head from his shoulders. "Hey you bitch. That hurt dammit." Tsunade blinked in surprise when Haiden's detached head kept cursing at her. What the fuck, was all the renowned medicnin could think as she stared at the sight. She'd seen some crazy shit over the years, but fact of life that she had accepted was that if your head was not connected to your body, then you were dead, end of story. Even she wouldn't be able to stay alive after having her head taken off, and yet this immortal seemed to still be ranting. A sudden flicker of white caught her attention as a bird-like creature made of white clay flew by her face. Katsu! Deodara exclaimed from his place atop a large clay dragon as the clay bird exploded in the medicin's face. Art is a blast, he laughed as Tsunade jumped out of the smoke with her wounds rapidly healing. Your orders, Leader-sama? Sasori inquired. Kill them all, Pain replied calmly. I will add their bodies to my collection. Sasori nodded as he threw off his Akatsuki cloak to reveal the scorpion puppet Hiriko that he was encased in. Karen, pull back and deal with the one flying above us. Haku, Anoka, I leave that scorpion thing to you, Naruto ordered. Hinata, the paper angel is yours. What about the guys with the Rinnegan? Even you can't take on 6 of them at once, Karen countered. Shouldn't I be the one to face them? Actually yes I can, Naruto responded. And I'm the best choice because I've fought you more than anyone else for almost 9 years now. Unlike his days as a naive genin, this was not an empty boast or even a stroke of arrogance like that of his former Uchiha teammate. This was a fact that he stated with absolute certainty, meaning he honestly thought that at this point he could take on just about anything the world could throw at him. 6-on-1 was a fair fight as far as he was concerned, because anything less wouldn't be a challenge. Even if the enemy did have the Rinnegan. So you wish to challenge me? Pain asked the masked blonde. I will show you true pain. Let's go wild. Hyuga Hinata had always been a shy girl due to her childhood as the weak heiress of the Hyuga clan. Her family had always considered her to be useless and had planned to replace her with her younger sister, Hanabi. Her cousin Niji blamed her for Kumo's attempt to kidnap her to acquire the Byakugan, which resulted in his father's death on her 3rd birthday 18 years ago. Ever since she had left Konoha and joined up with her Naruto-kun, she had never once regretted her decision because she honestly believed that they were making a difference in the world. She swore that never again would someone have their family turn against them if she could help it, like her own family had done to her. The Hyuga clan was divided, with the main house having enslaved their branch house cousins. When it was all done, there would be no more slavery in this world because she would make sure of it. You dare to attack our village? Konan sneered down at the Hyuga Kunoichi below as she hovered in the air with wings of paper sprouting from her back. You bring war upon us, and what is it for? You are collecting the Biju, Hinata responded. That is an act of war in itself that could bring about the destruction of this world. We are here to stop you and free the Biju from their enslavement. You're a fool, Konan said as she burst into paper. Shikigami no mai. She's turned herself into paper, Hinata mused as her white eyes narrowed. What a very strange jutsu. Be gone from here, Konan spoke clearly as the papers surrounded the Hyuga Kunoichi and started to burn. They're explosive tags. Hinata's eyes widened in surprise as the papers exploded. That was far too easy, Konan thought as the flames died down. Juho Sashiken. Hinata exclaimed as she appeared behind the paper angel-like woman with a pair of chakra lion heads encasing her fists. She tore right through Konan's body and fell back down onto the watery surface below. It wasn't enough. She must have substituted with a water clone, Konan realized. It seems we've reached a stalemate, Hinata commented. Not quite, Konan countered and held up her hand. Suddenly the ground was torn open, creating a massive trench that stretched across battlefield, and Hinata fell down into it in surprise. What is this? Hinata asked in thought before she focused her eyes on the walls of the trench. This whole area is littered with explosive tags. Indeed, the walls of the trench were covered in thousands of explosive tags that suddenly peeled off and flew at her. Hakusho Kaiten, she called out as chakra started to spin around her, deflecting the explosives. Kami no Shishin no Jutsu. Konan exclaimed as the explosive barrage began. There are 600 billion explosive tags here. Enough for 10 minutes of non-stop explosions. You'll run out of chakra before I run out of tags. It seemed that their confrontation had turned into a battle of attrition. Now Haku-chan. Anoka yelled as the giant scorpion that was Sasori chased after the pair, launching volley after volley of poisonous senbon. She'd heard about the man known as the greatest puppeteer Suna had ever produced, and judging by the fact that he was wearing a puppet that he could control like his own body, she was starting to believe the tales. Hayaton, Kokuryu Bafusetsu. Haku called out as a massive black dragon of ice formed from the falling rain and descended upon the puppet scorpion. That's impressive, Sasori mused at the sight just before the black ice dragon crushed his scorpion puppet, forcing him to quickly escape. I liked that puppet, he commented as the dust cleared to reveal his young face. What the hell? Anoka blinked in surprise. Why do you look so young? She asked, having known for a fact that the man was supposed to be older than her. I suppose after seeing what you were able to do to aim, I shouldn't hold back, Sasori mused before pulling out a scroll and unsealing his most powerful puppet. That's... Anoka trailed off at the sight of the new puppet. Anoka Dano? Haku inquired. It's the Sandaime Kaze cage, Anoka finished. Or at least a puppet modeled after him. Actually, I turned his body into this puppet, Sasori spoke up. He has become true art that will last forever. You. Anoka glared. You killed him, sparked the third shinobi war, and you desecrated his corpse. What the fuck is wrong with you? Usually she was well-mannered by Uzumaki standards, but if there was one thing that pissed her off, it was people with no respect for the dead. Jiten, Seiditsu Shiger, Sasori whispered as metal particles spewed from the Kazekige's mouth and drifted around it. Suddenly the metal accelerated right at the two kunoichi in a hail of iron sand. Hayaton, Makyo Hayasho, Haku spoke clearly as dozens of ice mirrors formed in front of the two kunoichi. The salvo of iron sand tore into the ice mirrors and smashed them upon impact, forcing the two to evade. Watch yourself, Haku. That stuff is poisonous. Anoka shouted to her teammate. You can't run from me, Sasori smirked as more iron sand gathered above the Kaze cage puppet to form a pair of large hammer and spear-shaped objects. Jiten, Seiditsu Keshu, the command echoed across the watery battlefield as the spear lanced out, carving through the air like a knife through butter, forcing Haku to dodge. You're both going to die here, he said calmly as the hammer struck down on Anoka's location. Anoka Dano. Haku yelled at the sight of her teammate being crushed. Foolish girl, Sasori commented without a care. You should have run. A moment later the air suddenly grew heavier as the iron sand was pushed away by what he recognized to be a shockwave. What is that? He asked in thought as Anoka stood unharmed, encased in a blue aura that had taken the shape of something resembling samurai armor. Rei no Yorawi, the Uzumaki kunoichi declared. Anoka Dano. Haku asked in surprise. What is this? Her chakra is different, and what is that jutsu? What is this? Sasori questioned. This is a kinjutsu I developed over the years, Anoka explained. As long as it's active I cannot be harmed. Of course she wasn't mentioning the reason it was classified as a kinjutsu. This specific jutsu required a lot of chakra to maintain and would quickly drain the reserves of any normal shinobi or kunoichi in a matter of minutes if not seconds. Luckily, as an Uzumaki in the prime of her life, she had chakra to burn even though her reserves weren't anywhere near the level of Senju Hashirama or Uzumaki Naruto. Those two were in a league of their own when it came to chakra levels. Jiten, Seiditsu Kaiho. Sasori called out quickly as he gathered iron sand above them. The metal suddenly branched out before descending on the two kunoichi in a massive screen of approaching death. Stand back, Haku, Anoka ordered as the metal branches grew closer. As Haku pulled back to the safety of her mirrors, Anoka disappeared in a burst of speed and reappeared right in front of the Kaze cage puppet. No! Sasori shouted. Ken no Hikari. Anoka exclaimed as her right fist glowed white just before she slammed it into the face of the Sandaime Kaze cage. The puppet shattered like glass as a massive blast of chakra tore through it and then continued on, carving up the landscape in a storm of destruction. You! Sasori trailed off in mounting anger. That was my favorite puppet, he sneered before removing his Akatsuki cloak. I've had enough of this little game, I will kill you both for this. You're welcome to try, Anoka shot back. That body, he couldn't have, that's sick. He turned himself into a living puppet, she thought as she stared at the man they had been fighting. I don't know what you've done to yourself, but it's not going to be enough to defeat us. Akahiji, Hayaki no Soen. Sasori laughed, seemingly insane as he unsealed 100 puppets that quickly connected chakra thread to a hole in his chest. I once destroyed a country with these. What do we do, Anoka Dano? Haku asked her teammate. I just need one shot, Anoka replied. Stay back and let me handle this. Okay, Haku nodded before jumping back a considerable distance. Kukiyos, Uzu no Tsurugai, Anoka spoke as a stunningly beautiful double-edged sword appeared in her left hand in a flash of blue light. She raised it high as 20 of the gathered puppets descended upon her. Die! Sasori shouted in glee. Suitsukata, Anoka whispered as she raised her sword up and then brought it down in a wide arc. The ground split open as all 100 puppets simply shattered before their remains clattered to the ground. Incredible, I've never seen Anoka Dano fight for real before, though I knew she was strong. I never expected this, Haku mused in wonder. Impossible, Sasori thought as he watched his prized puppet army be wiped out in an instant. Who is this girl? This is your end, Anoka declared before rushing right at Sasori. Stay back! Sasori yelled as he unleashed a blast of fire from his wrist-mounted flamethrowers. That's not going to work. Anoka shouted back as her spirit armor deflected the flames. It's over, her words rang true as she embedded her sword right in the puppeteer's chest, causing his body to shatter like glass. After taking a moment to confirm her kill, Anoka released her spirit armor and collapsed to her knees in exhaustion. Are you alright? Haku asked her. I'll be fine, Anoka replied. I just need to rest for a bit. Art is a blast. Deidara laughed as his airborne clay dragon turned to spewed a barrage of small clay orbs at the Rinnegan bearer. That's Bakuton, Karen thought as she manipulated the gravity around her to keep her in the air. Pitiful, she muttered as the bombs surrounded her. Katsu, the med bomber exclaimed as the clay bombs exploded around the flying Uzumaki Kunoichi. Tendo, Shinra Tensei, Karen spoke clearly as the explosions were literally blown away. What? Deidara exclaimed at the sight. How did she just do that? Those eyes, HN, they're worse than attack as Sherry Non, HN, is this the kind of power that Leader Sama can throw around, HN? Enough of this game, Karen said with a hint of annoyance in her voice. Tendo, Banshotenin, she spoke with her arm raised. What the Deidara thought in surprise as gravity shifted around him and pulled him off of his clay dragon. What the hell is this, HN? He reached for more of his clay but it was already too late. Caught by surprise and with no way out, it was only a matter of time before he was grabbed by Karen's outstretched hand. Ningendo, Karen whispered before yanking her arm back with the med bomber's soul attached. His now lifeless body fell towards the soaked ground below even as she stared down at his defeated corpse with a look of indifference. The man was weak just like many others that she had encountered, though to be fair her standards were quite high when it came to worthy opponents. Compared to the legends of old like Namikaze Minato, Senju Hashirama, and Uchiha Madara, Deidara just didn't measure up. In fact, she'd go as far as to say that the only man she considered worth her time these days was her co-leader and confidant, Uzumaki Naruto. That man was something else entirely. The rain still fell even and the explosions finally fell silent as she finally ran out of explosive tags. Konan dropped to one knee, out of breath from using up all of her chakra on maintaining the near-constant barrage of destructive blasts for 10 full minutes. She sighed in relief when there was no sign of her opponent even as the remaining flames were extinguished by the falling rain. My Kami no Shishin no Jutsu is finished. I didn't think I would need so much chakra, but it's finally over, Konan thought as she tried to catch her breath. She must be dead. Hinata asked from behind her with a hand pressed against the older woman's back in a Juken strike. How? You should be dead. Konan asked. I went over this plan, did countless simulations, it should have worked, nobody could have survived. You almost killed me, Hinata gritted out as she felt the last of that chakra dissipate from her system. Naruto-kun, it's a good thing you sealed some of that chakra in me or I wouldn't have survived, she thought as she looked over at Konan. You know, if things had been different, we could have worked together to bring about a peaceful world. Peace, so, you really are, the same, as, me? Konan whispered as the last of her life left her. I hate this, Hinata thought as held the older woman's broken body. I hate this world where killing and death is everywhere. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Later she couldn't tell if it was the rain or if she was crying. You really are his granddaughter, Kakuzu commented as the legendary medic pummeled her water mask into dust. But your jutsu are nowhere near his level despite being his descendant, nor do you have his bloodline. How do you know my grandfather? Tsunade questioned. He defeated me long ago, Kakuzu admitted. He was the first Konoha shinobi I ever fought. That's impossible, Tsunade countered. You'd have to be 100 years old. I have found ways to prolong my life, Kakuzu chuckled. Some would call me immortal, though we both know there is no such thing. If you really fought my grandfather, then I'll just have to finish what he started and kill you here. I don't care if you're immortal or not, Tsunade before running right at them. Katon, Zokoku. Kakuzu exclaimed as his fire and wind masks landed beside him and opened their mouths. Futon, a Chugai, wind and fire exploded from the masks and mixed together to create a rampaging wave of death across the soaked battlefield. Infun, Kai, Tsunade whispered as the seal on her forehead released. Sozo Saisei, she added a moment later as she ran right through the wave of flames. It burned, however she paid it no mind as she rapidly healed the burns she received before finally making it through the maelstrom and out the other side. She used her medical ninjutsu to heal any damage I just did, Kakuzu though in mounting worry as Tsunade jumped above him. Damn, he cursed as he and his masked bodies tried to scatter but it was already too late. Tsutenkyaku.